All right, King Killers, we're covering chapters 117 through 118 in this episode. Finally getting our introduction to Celean as she comes in with a lot of swagger before pummeling Kvothe repeatedly. We also talk about Kvothe pissing off Vashet and learning absolutely nothing from the lesson. Then you'll get to hear about the break schedule for the Chandrian, why men's locker rooms are the worst, and I'll teach you some more new slang that the hip cats are saying these days. So sit back and enjoy. All right, welcome back to the Kingkiller podcast. I'm Dan. Got with me the Ford Pinto of podcasters. Tim,
Wow.
What's going on? How you doing?
I like to think of myself as Lay Car. You remember Lay Car?
Lay Car? I don't remember Lay Car.
Yeah, it's very exclusive. George had Lay Car.
In fact, I just got a brand new car. Used some of that podcast money coming in. And got me a Rolls Royce boat tail.
Boat tail?
Yeah. It's $28 million.
Tell people you spent $28 million on a car.
I bought a 28 and I just, I had a lot of change in the cushions and, it was getting real lumpy. So I had to do something with it.
If I spent $28 million on a car, obviously I'd have to have a tremendous amount of money. I'd be embarrassed. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous amount of money.
I only use it to drive to Taco Bell and Burger King. That's the only time I use it.
It's appropriate. Should see a lot of those cars. I've never heard of the boat tail. I've heard of the Rolls Royce Phantom.
I scream whenever anybody gets within 100 feet of the car. I just start screaming at them. It's a $28 million car. I spent $28 million on this.
So you can afford it, but you won't allow anyone to get near it. Like, what is wrong with this dude? A lot is the answer. Much.
Yeah, it's expensive, but it is 100% worth it. Worth every single penny.
I think it'd be hard to gauge,
and that's what I paid in. I paid in pennies.
It'd be very difficult to gauge the worth. How you would gauge that to be worth 28 mil, unless you can resell it for 28 mil. Then it's like, oh yeah, it's totally worth $28 million.
Yeah. If I could,
other than that, sell this the joy you're getting out of it is not $28 million worth of joy.
Yeah, maybe like if you're, in 20 years, this car is so exclusive that it's worth $50 million. But even then, is it keeping up with the price of inflation, or what's going on with this car? Like, I don't even know if it'd be worth it then.
Does it come with a kit?
It does. It in fact does. Actual kit. Except for it's a live person, a real life AI butler drives the car.
An AI butler. Wow. Okay. So that now I can see now you're starting to get closer to that 28.
Yeah,
in my mind.
See,
an actual butler.
Now you feel like I spent a perfect amount of money on it.
You can set his accent to like South African or English. I like that. I like that idea. That actually starts to intrigue me much more.
But yeah, so what do we got here? We're starting on chapter 117, Barbarian Cunning. And in this chapter, Kvothe continues with his training with Vashet, and he learns a little bit more about the town that he's living in Hert, and he gets a training partner in Celean.
Yeah, we get a lot of Kvothe, I guess, realization of his assumptions coming to Hert, being like revealed, because it keeps happening, chapter after chapter. But then also his assumptions with meeting, what's her name again? Celean? Celean Dion. But yeah, I mean, it's great. Like virtually every single chapter, it's pretty dope.
Yeah, and he really lays it on. He likes to keep giving reminders of how much work he's putting in. Like, I mean, that's pretty much all he's doing while he's here. It's like, the
Well,
days pass quickly, as days tend to do when there's not much to fill them. Vashet continued to teach me, and I turned the whole of my attention toward being a clever and attentive student. And they were still having sex periodically. He's like, I never initiated them directly, but Vashet could tell when I was unproductively distracted and was quick to pull me down into the bushes in order to clear your foolish barbarian head, as she said. And I like the, before and afterward, I still found these encounters troubling. During, however, I was far from anxious. Vashet seemed to enjoy herself as well. That said, she didn't seem the least interested in much of what I had learned from Florian. Like, she was not about that 1,000 hands. She's like, yeah. Let's get to it. Let's get to the fucking business.
That's pretty funny. It actually kind of falls in line with the way they view it anyway, where it's just like they have the end objective, it seems, is a more focus. I mean, that's kind of where my mind goes in terms of the way they look at it. So yeah, all that, she's like, what does he say? Instead of 1,000 hands, more like 75 hands.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, okay, not bad. All right, let's get to the main event here, bro. It seems to be the attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes with their nature and how they view sex. Like, it's not a romantic thing. It's just like, something to clear our minds, get this, we obviously, you have that human desire to have sex, and it's like, let's just go ahead and fucking knock that out and then fucking get back to work.
Yeah, it seems like, especially compared to Florian, which is kind of where he learned those things from, that's like her life,
It's like, when you're on your 15-minute break, you don't have time for, 1,000 hands. You gotta get them quick hands going.
It seems like for Florian, her breaks are the non-sexual parts.
Yeah.
Her normal day is all sex. Then
she takes a 15-minute break from sex.
So, go out and slay a bear or, pick out some grapes.
Bust a cig with Great El Sinti.
I hadn't thought about that, but I love picturing it.
Yeah, they go in the smoke break room. It's just filled with smoke. Like, you open the door and it's just nothing but smoke. Is just people just standing in there busting cigarettes. It's like the smoking section at an airport where they just lock everybody in a room.
I have to think that at the Fae they would have something a little bit more elegant.
No, they don't. That's surprisingly, they don't. It's just a room with one ashtray they all share.
One ashtray in the middle?
Yeah.
It's got like yellow blinds.
Always filled. Never is it emptied.
Like picturing that, so it's like decked out with like linoleum. It's kind of like what a kitchen looked like in the 1970s. That's the interior. 1970s United States interior of this smoke break room.
Yeah, it's an interesting room. Great Al Sinti is always in there, smoking, popping and locking, fucking working. That's when he gets his work on, his popping and locking.
He's in there popping and locking.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah,
this is.
That's where reference. He's. When he doesn't get a lot of time to practice, and he's not going to do that in front of people. He's got his reputation to uphold. So when he gets his 15-minute breaks, he's popping and locking, practicing.
These 15-minute breaks, like they're clocking out.
Yeah, they do. They clock out from the Chandrian. Taking my 15, like, hey, we got fucking to go kill all these people at the Mothman farm. I need to go fucking take my 15. I've been working all day, and you're not taking that away from me.
All right, we'll leave in 15.
I will report you if I don't get my 15.
They got an OSHA in the Fae?
Yeah. You gotta be careful. You gotta give people their 15-minute breaks.
Jesus.
But yeah, so they're still busting a move with each other and doing some humping. And then, and again, it's not described in any detail. It's just kind of pointed out that they have it, and it's not pointed out that like this dude's super Mac. It's pointed out that, she likes having sex, but it's not that fucking, it's not like mind blowing for her or anything.
Yeah, is this something they do on a regular basis? Well,
Yeah, it just seems like normal.
well, the only sort of sexual suggestion we get was in the prior couple chapters. Kvothe, like, she says something. Kvothe's like super moved by the story, right? Some story she tells. He like kisses her on the forehead and the lips, and is like, "Oh, I'm so glad you were given to me." Blah blah blah. And she's like, "You're a silly boy." But then she has a look on her face, like her cheeks kind of rosy
Yeah,
up.
she blushed. Yeah,
Yeah. So he's
but
like,
that wasn't sexual.
no, but I'm saying that's as intimate as it
Oh
becomes. Other
yeah,
than that, she's like, how are we gonna get rid of this pant
yeah, yeah.
tent
She
you got
treats,
going on
yeah,
here?
she does not treat it romantically at all, or
Yeah.
like she's fucking lovesick over Kvothe, or
Well, that becomes
has to have it, and
that becomes really clear soon.
yeah,
Soon
yeah.
here, when
She's
he's
like so not thirsty for Kvothe that she's like, go bang away at Pintha. Get out of here. Like, I
yeah.
don't need you. There's multiples of other guys that here. So he's like, how many have you been sleeping with? I don't know. Like, how many times have I brushed my teeth? Fucking a lot of people, man. You're not special.
And that
You suffice. At that time, you suffice. But that's it. Get over yourself.
That's the really funny thing about it as well. That's not even, that wouldn't register in their mind as being hurtful,
No.
right, or offensive, because nobody gives a shit. They don't look at it in that way. It's not intimate, which is, again, hard to wrap your mind around. The idea of, being inside someone else's body is not being intimate. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, and then she would also, in between their practice and their heavy petting, she would send him away and let him go kind of explore around. So he'd explore Hert, and he started to kind of get a feel for the places, realized it was larger than he assumed. Part of that is just, instead of having houses that are all grouped together, they got them all built into the mountains, because you can't just like have everything out in the open with these winds. So you got to kind of have it buffeted against the mountains. So they're spread out further because they're not grouped in the same way that you would group other houses.
Yeah, it seems like, because they kind of addressed this before, where they're talking about if you have like a mill, or even just a decent clay pit, something like that, everybody gathers around it, right? Or you have a shop, whatever type of store, and then all the homes gather around it, and you basically have a town square. And that's basically what we have in our world, is you have basically a town square. But in their world, it is very much spread out, which would be practical for the weather. But it also seems like they like the open spaces. I mean, but again, I guess that's practical for the weather in itself anyway, because all the houses, yeah, they're all built into the earth. They're not.
Yeah,
just like,
I mean, it would seem to be, it would be more practical to have the houses not take up, a long stretch of land, where like going from one end to the other is longer, because you don't put things side by side and just stack them, widthwise. You're only stacking them lengthwise, because they got to be built into the mountains. Mm-hmm. So if you're taking up less space, not using the middle, but then you're just stretching out the distance between everything longer. So it would be, to go from one end of town to the other would just take longer than the amount of houses would necessarily justify. So it's not like it would be more practical to have everything bunched together, because it would be easier to get around, to get from point A to point B. But the benefits are, because it is spread out, you're not going to have that, shit smelling city where, they don't have indoor plumbing. So if you're in Tarbean, where everything's on top of each other, it's going to be awful smelling.
Yeah, but we still don't have verification, right? And then in this world that they poop, right?
Well, there is pee, at least. We know they've mentioned pee or urine, but we don't know what kind of urine it is. Is it human urine? Is it animal urine? Is it does urine mean something completely different in this world? Yeah.
Could be strawberry wine for all we know.
Yeah. But that is a good point to bring up. There is some reason the places smell. It is not clarified exactly why. Not a clarification that it is humans pooping and peeing and tossing that shit out in the street.
It's would probably be an assumption a lot of people make.
Yeah.
But, picturing a city and all.
That's, people not reading close enough to realize the central mystery of the story. But yeah, and then one of the other things he notices is the baths, which it reminds me of like going into the gym locker room for the first time as a kid
or something.
Yeah, you walk in, you're like, whoa, no, no, what is this?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, what the hell, man? Yeah, I thought of the same thing.
Why are none of these old men wearing pants? Put your pants on.
Why not wrap the towel around you? Why are you walking around holding a towel when you could just wrap it around you, man? Like, I don't understand. Like the older you get, the more you're just like, nope.
Yeah,
I need everyone to see this.
That made it, from an early age. It's like, okay, so if you're going to the gym, get dressed before you go there, and get cleaned up after you leave.
Yeah, allocate the time that you're gonna have to go back home, and get washed up or what have you before whatever else you're gonna do. Yeah. It's really funny. You can bring that up. I hadn't thought about that in a very long time. But it is definitely shocking as a young man to see a bunch of old naked men where you're just like, what the fuck?
Because I don't know if you've never seen really old men at a gym. They do not look like they go to the gym regularly.
That's an important point. Yeah. Yeah, they're not all buffed out and in great shape. Yeah, it's a lot of pasty.
They are not looking really good. They are
pasty paunchiness.
They are not like the prototype of the male physique. This is like the male physique gone wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely, think of the best examples of the type of body that you don't want to see naked. That's what you see naked at the YMCA gym, at locker room.
Women talking about men sending dick pics. Like, yeah, well, I've been in a men's locker room before, and it terrified me.
It's like shell-shocked, man. That's really funny. But these baths actually sound like they're pretty dope. I mean, especially like the way they're designed and everything. But it does bring to mind, it also brings to mind for me, it was like, I don't see myself ever being a nudist. I don't need all this in my face.
No, it is not and unfortunately the attractive people, the people you would think like, okay, that person could go show off their body is not revolting. Like, those are not the people that frequent these places.
Yeah, the idea in one's mind would be like, oh, so they're all just going to be like that because that's what you would hope. Not what happens. Yeah, it's
like in Workaholics when they go to they make the plan to go to the whatever the like place like that, the nudist colony.
Yeah.
It was. And they go on festival. Like Thanksgiving. Yeah. They go during like Thanksgiving or something like that, or Christmas, and it was like nobody there other than some like goofball looking waiter like serving them.
Yeah, it's a it's a subculture that exists. People dig it.
Now, one of the cool things kind of about the ADEM society that I do like, not a big fan of the nude bathing system, but the no deference paid to age. Everybody is kind of just mixed together. I think that is a much better system than the system we largely use. Obviously, there's exceptions to rules, and sometimes, like, playing sports or something like that, makes sense to kind of separate things by age to a point.
Mm-hmm.
But the segregating like schools and all that kind of stuff by age seems ridiculous to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like, one, not everybody is at the same level, based on their age. It's not even close. Some people move way faster at a much earlier age. And not only that, but then you're also, all your peer group is all a bunch of immature kids too. You don't have anybody to kind of guide you and that's a little bit more mature, and you don't have like the older people keeping the younger people in line, and then the older people having the responsibility and to keep the younger kids in line, which kind of helps them as far as growing and to be adult, have that kind of responsibility. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me to base everything just on age alone. So I like that. I like their system. Just me personally, you know, if you don't like that system, that's fine. But I personally, I think that's a better system, is to group things, just have everybody kind of intermingle and learn from each other, and, you know, have adults and kids and everything interacting with each other.
I think it definitely breeds for better experience. Because like you say, I mean, one, if someone's more advanced, but they're being stuck back in this one level, which is like our grading system. Yeah, I mean, you're breeding stagnation, right? I mean, you're basically encouraging stagnation, which is probably not ideal. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go as far as to say it's not ideal for like hungry for education youth. You know, people that are really interested in advancing. You're not allowing it. You know, to a great degree.
The system was so stupid. Like when we were in school, like I remember in 7th grade, like one of the advanced math class was filled up, so they just like drew names of people who had to go and take the regular class, and so I had to go down to the regular class, and math was my shit. I mean, it was like even the advanced classes were too slow, and so I had to go down into like, and I was like doing like basic algebra, and like the teacher was like, look, man, I know this is because I'm getting all A's and not doing anything, not putting in any effort whatsoever. It was just ridiculous work to me. It was like, might as well have been putting me into basic math. But yeah, and he was acknowledging that, and so he was like trying to have me like tutor the other kids who were struggling in it. It's like, dude, I want to, am I getting paid for this? I don't want to teach these kids. I don't even like these kids.
What a terrible, I mean, that's a great example of the system being just absolutely terrible, because there's no incentive for you to do that extra work.
No.
And the extra work isn't challenging either. So what
that
the fuck
teacher,
are we doing
man,
here?
he was annoying. He'd always try to get me to play football, and I would refuse.
Exactly who you're talking about now.
Yeah, he like would follow me into the bathroom.
Yeah, he did the
like
same
go
thing.
to the bathroom to get away from him. He would like follow me over and like, look, man, we could be running these plays for you. It's like, you know, I see you outside at in gym when you're playing. Like, you'd be perfect returning kicks, and it's a receiver, and it's like, dude, I'm a soccer player. And he's like, yeah, but you could be really good at football. I was like, I'm really good at soccer, man. Really good.
I can't believe, I don't know if you've never told me this, but dude did the same exact thing to me, followed me in a bathroom. Now I was skipping class, so that actually made sense. But it was all about wrestling. He wanted me to wrestle. I'm like, I'm not wrestling, man. Yeah. It's not going to happen. I did this enough with my brothers. I'm not doing that shit. It just wasn't for me. It was never going to be my sport. I liked other sports, but I wasn't going to do that. But that's so funny, man. What a great recruit.
He was
kind of creepy. As far as I was
super
concerned.
Creepy, man. I'm like standing there at a urinal pissing. He's like standing behind me, pitching me on playing football for him. Like, I don't even want to be around you right now, much less play football for you.
It's funny, man, even at those young ages. I mean, well, it doesn't matter your age. Well, I guess to some degree it does. But you can sense, you know, you can always, everybody can sense. You have that sensory mechanism of like, I need to be like avoid this person.
Yeah.
Didn't kind of matter what the agenda was. It was like, yeah, this dude kind of creep. And yeah, I definitely got that vibe.
Yeah. But yeah, and then but I do like that aspect of their society, how, you know, no deference paid to age. And then in Kvothe, he talks about how at first it was hard not to stare at the breasts of the naked women. Then once that novelty faded, it was hard not to stare at the scars of all the mercenaries. He's like, you know, it was easy to tell who had taken the red even when their clothes were off. So, you know, got all these people, like, they're out there. That's what they do for a living, and they're taking nicks and wounds. They're getting cut and wounded, coming back scarred up. It'd be a interesting society to kind of, because you know, you think of like war torn groups of people. There's a lot of a lot of people getting mangled and stuff in war. And it would be similar for their whole city.
What's really interesting about that, because if we think about that, if someone just explained that, you didn't read the books, you'd be like, there's this society where basically they're good, they're in trade is mercenaries. I mean, you wouldn't picture what we end up hearing about, which, like, when Vashet walks them through their training, it's very well thought out. And it's like, you don't hit for the eyes or neck. It's everything's just, torso, whatever. And it's like and you're very much not trying to do damage and whatever. It's like their whole approach is very, very thoughtful. And the whole Lithani thing, it's very thoughtful in terms of the approach, where it's not, and you kind of hear about this with like senseis in karate. You don't learn to fight, but it's just it's fighting. So you kind of accept, or you, at least to the way I would expect it, it seems as if it would be much more, I don't know, high testosterone sort of atmosphere. It's not like that.
Yeah, you would expect with the fighting mentality like that. I mean, you go to places where there's fighting and it is a high testosterone area. And even the women, like you see the women boxers or women MMA fighters, they're extremely aggressive, by their nature. And so like fighters tend to be more aggressive than the average person. And
I feel
this society is completely different than that.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of these matches, people aren't like, rah, rah. They're not all calling people out and flexing.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of it. We see like the guy challenge Vashet and stuff like that, but then the way her reaction to it was of kind of dismissiveness and disgust, and that's like what he did was stupid, and that kind of they don't take it the same way you would expect most.
Well, that's completely different, because what that was he's just basically requesting. He's not like yelling at her. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of aggression after, like you used MMA, but boxing is as well. And there's a lot of showmanship that goes on there as well. But it does seem like, it's what we would expect in our world is high aggression. The idea that it's not like that at all is quite interesting. Definitely a cooler way to look at it. It's more careful. It's more precise. We see that especially with the highest levels. Well,
and we see it with how Vashet reacts to Kvothe, like talking about fighting and winning and what it means and all this kind of stuff. She does not take kindly to when he treats fighting like, to them it is just a tool, but the tool is, like she talks about, it's a tool for control. Yeah. It's not, yes, it gives you the ability to do X, Y, and Z, but that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to be in control. And so that's a big tenet of their society, is to kind of be in control. And you see that in everything they do, with how they position themselves, how they, use the hand talk, and, they don't raise their voice. They don't, they do all these things where it's about kind of being in control of yourself.
I believe the way it's described is like the steps are control yourself, control your surroundings, and then you can control another when that situation arises.
Yeah.
Right? It's like those steps along the way.
Even the concept of winning to them, like to them, it's not like, did you beat the person in a fight? It's, did you stay within the Lithani? If you did that, you won, regardless of the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting way to build this society, because if you were looking at it, sometimes I like to picture how Rothfuss would do this like in outline form. If he chose a society that's made up of mercenaries, then it would be like, what's their code? Like there's many things that how do they differentiate themselves? Like then get to the point of like communication, deciding to make that different, which wouldn't be necessary, but what would be their code of ethics? Or would they just be a bunch of brash? Because you're not going to make them, right? You're going to make them different than Daydan. Right?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have a bunch of guys like Daydan. You could, but it's just a bunch of brawlers. Like, it's not going to be a super interesting society. So to completely have something that's juxtaposed to the mercenaries of our, like that area that they go to where Tempe fights, right? That whole bar is like filled up with mercenaries that aren't making money, right? So they're all pissed off and they're all kind of jackasses. And then you got a lot of those people would be tempted to do what we see in the beginning of the book, which is take the coin, right? The roll, and then, you know, end up being a freaking guy on the road stealing people's shit, but doing it like legally, or well, I guess it's controversial in terms of whether or not that's legal or illegal, right?
Yeah, the Lethani, the Lethani, and then their kind of societal structure with how communal it is. It's a very tight knit community, and it's very insular. They don't they don't really let outsiders get in. You know, you see how big of a struggle it is for Kvothe to semi-integrate into it, and so it's very insular. But it's, you know, it's a very communal society where they're all in it together, and they have a very valuable commodity. But then they have a strict kind of moral code with the Lethani where they don't just sell themselves to the highest bidder. It's, you know, they would sell themselves to the highest bidder as long as what they were being asked to do was also within the Lethani. So they're not just going to do whatever job is offered. So it's kind of a real like a Buddhist monk warrior type thing, except for their personalities aren't really monkish. I mean, they no nudity taboo. They have sex all the time. Like, they're not, you know, they like to joke and laugh around. Like, Vashet is busting balls constantly. So it's not like this muted, self-reflective, and you know, like, it's not a society where it's just all about like reaching a Zen state. There's some aspect to that, but it's different than that too. So it's not just like something you could. It's interesting in the way it's done, because it's not something you can say, okay, it has some similarities with this, some similarities with that, but it's a unique
its own
society.
Yeah. I mean, there's pride. Like, these people have pride. Like, Celean's a great fucking character, man, because she's so young and she has this ideal in her mind of what her life is going to be like and what she can strive for, which is very logical in terms of living in that world and what you would want to focus on if you have the abilities that she clearly has. And that sort of that structure of, it's not faith, but it's you know, that belief structure that is contained within their world. And then the fact that, you know, they're not afraid to be prideful. They're not afraid, like, because the Lethani is that guiding sort of principle, but like you said, it's not monkish. It's just like a moral system. I love their back and forth. I know that's like next chapter, but that back and forth that they have is very revealing. And I love the fact that it comes from a child form, because we see it with Cheyenne in Kvothe, and we see the sort of that dialogue back and forth. And it would be something that it makes sense that Rothfuss presents it in a way that Lethani is something that's not 100% clear, right? It's it's a goal that you strive for, but I don't know, you know it when you see it, sort of kind of situation, right?
Yeah,
you discover it along the way.
It's I mean, they're very interesting. I mean, they're very unique, but they got great personalities. There's these chapters, there's a bunch of humorous parts in them. I mean, they're great personalities. They're funny. They got some very cocky individuals, and Vashet and Celean and Pentha. And then you have, Tempe, who's more reserved and kind of, because a lot of it, I think, is his insecurity with the language and that kind of stuff makes him seem more reserved. But then you also have Cheyenne, who does seem more like that, monk type person, who does seem like, a warrior monk with her personality. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them, they don't have personalities like that. Case Red doesn't have a personality like that. Pentha, Celean, Vashet, Tempe's not like that. So they're unique. They're not all the same at all.
There's the stories, the 99 stories, and the sword, the whole process with the swords being bestowed upon them, mm-hmm. have that monkish quality as well. Like, high respect for like this history. Yeah. It's very sort of that monkish. I hadn't listened. I'd been reading these chapters. I hadn't listened to the Audible in such a long time. why are they Swedish? Like, why did
Swedish?
they choose?
I
The
don't know,
accent
like,
sounds Swedish, right?
yeah, I
Am
don't
I just
know. Like, I can't. I don't even. It doesn't even register. Accents don't register to me unless, I mean, it'd have to be super distinctive, like for me to even recognize it as
it,
something like that. But that's
well,
what
the
I
way
would
it's
think. I mean,
written,
they're
the
all
way
like
it's written, there is no
Rothfuss
accent.
is like they're all blonde hair, blue
Oh, that's right,
eye, or gray eyes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like it's like gives me a Nordic vibe. You know, it seems to be a more Asian culture in a lot of ways, and like some of the stereotypical ways you get in fantasy, you would expect this to be like an Asian culture, like especially the warrior type thing. Like, I mean, that's just typically what you get in a fantasy book. And so, but then when he describes them sounds like the fucking children of the corn. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's funny.
These sound like some Nordic, short Nordic people.
When I read it, it doesn't like you remember that the sort of bumpkin guy,
Mm-hmm.
very clear accent, right, with that
Yeah.
dude. And there's a couple other places where we get a little bit, but I don't think I've come across any when I've read any accent of anyone in a Dimray. But when I listen, it definitely sounds Swedish. So, but whatever, they made that choice. I don't know. I'd be curious to say if Rothfuss gave them guidance to say to Podell, make
He should have did like Irish and kept talking about pots of gold, even though it's not written in there.
Man, what the fuck? What are they doing? They're really taking a license with this Audible. Just really ham it up too.
Yes, you're stealing our lucky charm, my Lathani.
just yeah, really ham it up. That'd be.
I wish I could do accents. I would piss everybody off with my accents throughout all the episodes.
Work on it, dude. Just takes a little practice, you know?
Yeah, I'll practice accents.
Hone that in.
Start putting in 8-hour days. But, you know, one of the other parts you really get laid into is how much money they're bringing in. Because he's like, you know, it's open at all hours for anyone to use. Soap and candles and towels were available for the taking. The baths, Vashet told me, were maintained by the school. Like, that's not something that would be insignificant to Kvothe, considering that he's been in a situation where he's like bathing in streams and washing his clothes in streams, and he's, you know, buying things like soap and candles. Like, he's not got a lot of extra money to buy things like these things, and they're just giving them away. You know, it's just there for the taking.
We talked about this in the last chapter. It's not extravagant, but it borders on it. You know, let me say this: it is borderline extravagant. It's not luxurious necessarily, right?
No, not for our standards, but for this world standards, it would be. I mean, this is not something you're not going to any other. There's no other towns he runs into where there's just baths where even for the
community
locals.
center with stocked with towels and hot water.
Know, like Tarbean's like, hey, you can get some bread for the priest, but man, it's a heavy price you got to pay for that bread. It sounds like.
Yeah.
But
that's a really good point. And that's interesting because he keeps learning this about Herod, because when you get there, you don't necessarily see all these things. Then you see the windows, right, made of glass. And then you see how well fitted the homes are and how each one has a stove. And, you know, it just kind of grows outward where he sees it more and more. It's a very interesting little society for sure.
Well, and you also, it makes sense that they would be wealthy because what they're offering, their commodity that they're selling, would be extremely valuable.
Yeah,
like they're one of their low rung fighters can just lay waste to people. Like take other mercenaries that you would have to you'd have to pay for those mercenaries. He can fucking dust them in 3 seconds. Yeah. And so like to have someone like that at your, if you needed guards or you needed to get something done, they'd be extremely useful in those fields. Like as
think about
bodyguards, like especially if you're like someone like Mayor Alvaron or, a king like the Poet King or Roderick, like I'd be spending some money on having some of these warriors there to protect me.
Think about the when they were out, gallivanting, looking for the bandits. If it was instead of Daydan and Hespe and Martin, maybe you have Martin, but then you have three. You have Tempe and two other of the Adem. I mean, what the hell, man? Like they'd be super.
Yeah, have three of them
vicious.
together, like in, I don't know, like what obviously the school that she's in charge of, Cheyenne, that's focused heavily on the sword, but there's probably still schools that focus on the bow, and so you could still have a dim that are really good with a bow and arrow, and have some sword guys, and you have like 4 or 5 of them, three really good with sword. Probably be extremely expensive, but it would also be a beast to take them on because you can really surround them and take them out one on one if they can fight as a tandem.
It seems like as a whole, well, we don't really know 100%, but it seems like as a whole, there's all these different schools, but it seems like in hand-to-hand combat, they're absolute elites, man. Like,
yeah, they are devastating.
Close.
Like what Tempe does to those mercenaries is devastating.
But what you're talking about is add in a sword, add in bow and arrow, add in these other abilities that they might have. It's devastating.
I mean, think of how little the amount of effort he had to put into completely incapacitating 3 people in a matter of like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And he put almost no effort into it, to the point where he's just like, hey, watch my form. Like, I'm going to show you this, and you're going to see, like, try to figure out why I whooped their ass, because I'm going to do it real quick. And then he does. He just fucking pummels the shit out of them, knocks them all out cold, and could have easily killed them. If he needed to kill them, he could have. And then when he fights Cinder's bandits, who seem like, pretty well-organized bandits, like, soon as Kvothe and company ran up on them, they had that camp turned into a fort in a matter of seconds. I mean, these were not guys that were unskilled, and Tempe took them both out. Like, it didn't seem like it was that big of a deal to him. He didn't get hurt. And when she asked him, when Hespe asked him if he was hurt, he looked at her offended that she would even suggest that he could get hurt by 2 guys. And he's low rung.
Yeah. He's like, but that's wild. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense that they're extraordinarily valuable. It's also if they're all sending 80%, and then many are sending even more out of pride. Yeah, they got heavy income coming in. I don't know what their population's like, but that's a lot of money. I mean, if that's the bulk of what they make, and they talked about it before, where it's like how much when those jackasses were asking Tempe how much he makes, and they were all just like, "Raw," seemed like it seemed like a really good wage. Right?
Yeah, I think he was saying he was making like 3 times them, because like they asked, like, you think you're worth 3 times, 3 of us, 3 of me? He's like 3, 4, 5, like something like that. I can't remember the exact way it goes down, but he dresses them down in that way, where it's like, worth at least like 4 or 5 of you guys.
So great in retrospect too, because he's not really talking shit. He's just matter of fact responding.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, if you had that kind of ability as fighters in this kind of a world, it would be extremely valuable. And yeah, I mean, you could see where that would be a deadly combination. Especially, man, could you imagine, like, if some of them know magic, some of them are namers or something?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Then it's like you're talking just a complete other level.
Well, I was going to say, so if you have, I was just thinking that group out. If you have Kvothe even a little bit more advanced than he is now, and then like 3 Adem or even 2, that's a lethal group, dude.
Yeah.
Like, they can lay waste to, like, they would be very effective in their objectives. Let's say,
well,
that.
Yeah. Think about, like, if you had a Loden teamed up with Pentha and Vashet, that trio, like, what are you going to do against them? You have a guy that can call the name of the wind.
Can break out of a cell
that's
made to keep him in specifically.
Yeah, turn stone into dust. into sand. I mean, like the
Control the
guy who knows what he's all capable of. You see what Kvothe is capable of, and Elodin would be much more advanced than that, at least up to where we've seen.
Yeah, man.
And then
you gotta get the dream team together, man.
You put two fighters that would just annihilate anybody who tried to get close. Like what are you gonna do? You can't, because you would have to stop Elodin from being able to use naming or sympathy, and if you can't get close to him, you can't stop him, and then he'd just be a complete wrecking crew at that point. So like you put some namers, or if the Adim are namers, you combine naming with their fighting ability, and then you're talking about an extremely valuable commodity. Like they would be an extremely deadly force you would not want to mess with.
It sort of does bring the question up, though. Like, once you've established that ability, it doesn't seem like, well, they practice a shit ton at it, right? Elodin, it's not like he just has these abilities. He had to develop them, right?
I mean he still goes and just sits and watches the wind.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, to be able to combine them is probably not, it may not even be possible, frankly. But if you combine,
I think they have namers. Like, I mean, I think it's likely that at least the person that names Kvothe Maedra, I think she's likely a namer, and if she's not like a full-fledged namer, she seems to have the talent for it, and that she could be a namer if she had the teaching.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when we get to that chapter again, because I don't remember all the specific details about like that individual per se. But if I remember, she was like older, and
she's older. She's not like fighting or anything. But and then also like when Vashet hears about what he did to the bandits, like her eyebrows are raised, and I'm not sure if that's just a reaction of, I didn't think Kvothe was capable of such a thing, just him by himself would be able to do something like that, or if she's like, I've never heard of someone with that kind of power before type of situation, where like I've never seen someone that capable, or I don't know if magic. It's which one it is like if she's just blown away by the ability itself, or she's blown away that Kvothe has that ability.
That's actually really interesting.
Like, because if it's the ability itself, that would kind of signify that she's not used to that kind of power.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
In their society,
that would be an interesting thing to hear about, because when he does anything in front of the group, when they're out with hunting for the bandits, he makes fire. They freak the fuck out.
Yeah,
he breaks a stick. They freak the fuck out. It would be interesting to see what people in Adem would think about that as well. If they'd be like, "Holy shit, look at this dude." You know? Yeah, that'd be really interesting. I mean, like, this does also kind of make clear the fact, because sometimes I forget about, these are all quite insular groups, like you were saying before. Like, you almost feel like, because we spend time in the university and there's all these individuals that we get accustomed to, I start to feel like everybody knows about this, and those little reminders are important that Rothfuss puts in with these other groups. He freaks the shit out of the mayor too, right?
It not necessarily like freaks the shit out of him. It was like the mayor kind of like flinched a little bit, but is so in control of himself that it was very subtle. Like Kvothe noticed it, but he also commented on how subtle and quickly the mayor composed himself and dropped the
shocked look,
the shocked expression. Yeah. But it clearly kind of made the hairs on his arm stand up a little bit.
Yeah, suddenly I want to know what everybody knows. I want to know how much. I want to know how much like Braden knows.
Yeah.
I want to know how much. What's his face? I always draw a blank on his name, but Dagon and the Gargamel. That tries to off the mayor. I always draw a blank on his name.
Caudicus,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like how much he was actually capable of, how much he was just sort of fronting.
Well, he seemed to be capable of a good bit. I mean, he was like when, I guess like they say, when Dagon goes and captures him, he ended up losing an eye during the fight. So like that guy's a full-fledged arcanist.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's got the necklace. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a full-fledged arcanist, you're a dangerous person. Period. Yeah. Like you see what the lowest level people can do. What Ambrose can do as a Relar and a little shit is still would be extremely dangerous for anybody to have that kind of power just on the regular. You can kill people without being in the same room as them.
Yeah.
You could just slice their throat and not even be in the same room with them.
Yeah, this world's vicious, bro.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
I don't understand why,
Qs.
Granted, obviously the fact that malfeasance is such a heavy term for them to the point where, like, you don't do that shit because they used to burn these people alive and, hunt down wizards, the arcanists, and kill them because they would use the magic to do harm to people. So there's a somewhat strict adherence to not using it for those purposes, or at least not getting caught using it for those purposes. But you're still human. They're still humans. Like, that's not going to stop an Ambrose. It's just going to make he's going to be cautious. He's not going to want to get caught, but it's not going to stop him from doing it. It's not like, it's not like murder doesn't happen because murder is illegal.
Every time Kvothe gets mad, he threatens to rip people apart. So
yeah.
Not that he's doing it every 5 seconds, but he's not above using
no. Like he scares the shit out of the guy in the bar, like burns a hole in his bar top because he wanted information from the guy.
Yeah, he's way too tempted. He has no he has some control, but
and imagine someone like Ambrose who's near the king, in the line of succession,
used to getting away with whatever he wants to get away with.
I mean, you would be he would be extremely tempted to use it to gain power to move up the line, and the only really limiting factor is not going to be morals. It's not going to be a moral thing. It's going to be am I going to get caught? Can I get away with it?
Yeah.
So the Arcanists are extremely dangerous, way more dangerous than just an ADIM fighter. Like an ADIM fighter is dangerous, but Tempe was completely eliminated from that fight with the bandits because the guys had arrows, and they would have peppered him full of arrows before he got close enough to do anything. Didn't stop Kvothe. Kvothe massacred their whole group.
Yeah, that was easy too.
Yeah.
He barely lifted a finger.
That's super easy, but extremely brutal, and he did it.
Think about, but putting that into perspective, if he had to take out one, not necessarily easy, but I mean, he's able to do it with too much trouble, let's say. But every time he does things like this,
he's not going to get binder's chills from killing the first guy. So it took a lot, it took a bunch of different effort before he started to get close to binder's chills. Yeah, and then we don't know if he called down the lightning. So maybe he, if he does that lightning, if it's the result of someone else like angels, maybe he's not able to take out everybody. It seemed like he was on his last leg at that point. So he's probably not able to just kill everybody. If he's not responsible for the lightning, then he's probably not capable of killing everybody in that group just by himself. But if he had naming under his belt, if he was like a powerful namer, and he had control over it, full control, where he could call it like Elxadal is able to call fire, or Elodin is able to call the name of things. If he had that kind of control, he would be an extremely deadly force.
Yeah, for sure.
Depending on what the limitations are. We don't really know, too, how much the limitations. Like, could you call a hurricane or a tornado if you needed it?
Well, it seems very much.
Or is it just going to be like a gust of wind?
I was going to say with the fire. I mean, if he has a brazier, now he's super lethal, right? He needs a source, right? So he could pull off of sources, but with having the grasps, I mean, obviously he's going to be a lot more lethal, Plus, we are talking about a freaking teenager.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about a full-fledged arcanist, somebody like a Loden, just trying to think these things out. It's completely different. We're talking a completely different scenario.
Yeah, so I mean that's the as far as the magic systems, like what I would like to learn more on is what the limitations are as far as the what you call it, the slippage. I'd like to know more about slippage and those kind of limitations on why you can't do certain things, and then also what the limitations are. Like, what's the max power for naming?
Yeah,
I would like to hear like what's the max power with the name of the wind and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Which
is it
I imagine we're gonna see like Kvothe let loose with some naming, so we'll probably get that. And then I want to know what shaping is, which obviously we're gonna get more information on that too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very much contingent on the Alar, right? But then also there still has
Not
to be a
naming.
limitation. No, I'm talking about, well, like, so for example, Devi, right? She's much more powerful than Kvothe, can exert herself to a much greater degree than Kvothe can. She cites her Alar as the reason,
Yeah.
but then she also does have she did also have a power source, right? Or is
After
that even without?
she'd already stopped Kvothe, and then she'd already broke Kavoth's hold on her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to get her source of fire while he was putting his full effort into trying to stop her, and he couldn't. But yeah, so I mean, but that's not I get that aspect of it, the limitation of like how strong your Alar is. I'm talking about slippage though, of like when you do like the guy who rips his arm off because he tried to link two things that were unalike and lift one onto the roof of a building, and it tore his arm off at the socket. Like, I want to know like what the limitations are as far as slippage is concerned. Those kind of things. Bad links where some of the lost energy goes into the sympathist and can cause major problems. Could set himself on fire. Could freeze him. Could do physical damage to himself by having bad links. So I'd like to know more about the limitations as far as that goes. I get like the limitations on, you're only as strong as your willpower basically. But what about like the limitations just in the magic itself?
It is interesting to think about the slippage too, because you would think there would be ways to utilize it.
Yeah.
Like you could utilize it for propulsion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's many things. I mean, just you could expand in all different ways. You could pants people, like we've talked about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then the slippage would be the powering part. It would be the bad link, but yeah, the slippage is the dangerous part.
Even the
slippage
well,
is
the
slippage is just the energy that doesn't go into what you're trying to put it into, that goes back into you. That's the stuff you don't want. So that's not like utilizing the slippage. You'd be utilizing the bad link. I know what you mean. I'm just clarifying for the listeners. It's not. Yeah, it's the slippage is a straight bad thing. It doesn't benefit. The slippage is the lost energy. Where does it go? And if it's too much goes into you, it can be deadly. But yeah, and then we get, as far as him going through the town, he goes and he sees like the smithy, and he notices like they have signs above all the doors, so he's able to kind of get himself around once he realizes what the symbols mean. It's not written words, so he doesn't have to learn how to read Ademic to be able to travel around. And then I like that he goes, I visited an apothecary where I was told I was not welcome. Saw that ginger walking through, and it's like, no.
I was wondering why necessarily. I mean, they only let doctors.
Well, I'm sure Kvothe not the only one that's pissy about him being there. It's probably a good 60-70% of the school, probably, at least. But yeah, and then, I spent some 3 royals I'd stolen, 3 of the royals I'd stolen to buy 2 new sets of clothes, as those I had were showing their miles. And so get some new clothes, looking all spiffy.
I thought it was interesting. Like he definitely is growing to realize the importance of appearance, because he bought clothes, didn't buy a cloak.
Yeah, that is he's got a pretty sick cloak right now. Like for
Oh,
as
true.
nerdy
Yeah,
as
okay,
cloaks
yeah,
are, he's
yeah.
got a pretty sick one.
He
He
does
doesn't
have
really.
the.
He's not going to be in the market for a new cloak
I
for
guess
quite a while.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't feel comfortable to wear it,
No,
right? Around the
rightly.
Adim.
Like I
Well,
mean,
no,
they
I
already
get it.
look
Yeah,
down at him enough.
yeah.
Like
Well, that's what I mean. So he could buy a cloak that doesn't willow in the wind or willow when there's no wind. Actually, there's so much wind. I guess maybe they wouldn't even realize it.
dude
I don't know.
walks in and hums a song, and people look at him like he's eating shit sandwiches. Like imagine if he was like humming a song, wearing a cloak, and strumming the lute.
So they frown upon the.
It's not. He's gonna get some bad looks. It's gonna be much worse than someone seeing someone eat a shit sandwich.
So they frown upon the cloak in this world, is what you're saying.
Oh, for sure.
This area.
Like what kind of normal society would not frown on cloak wearing?
Well, he could always turn around and be like, but look at all the pockets.
Yeah.
Do you guys see all the pockets? They would just be like, pockets are not of the Lithani.
Like, they're all shielding their kids' eyes. Like, don't look at him. Look away. You pervert. Pervert. What is wrong with you? We got kids here.
This is the only time they have a problem with nudity
Yeah.
is when a guy opens his cloak.
Yeah. It's not even nudity. It's the actual cloak looking at it in the lute and the humming. They're just absolutely disgusted. Get a room. And then he mentions, I had spent many hours watching the sword tree. At first, I did this under Vashet's direction, but before long, I had found myself drawn back when I had time of my own to spend. Its motions were hypnotic, comforting. At times, it seemed the branches rode against the sky, spelling the name of the wind. So again, this place is magic.
Mm-hmm.
This is magic. He is getting in tune with seeing the name of the wind, and he gets locked in more than he's ever been locked in before. This is like the time where, he had the time with Felurian where it was his most powerful moment of naming, but this is where he gets the most locked in for the first time of like having some kind of control over it.
Yeah. Well, with Felurian, it's a big part of that's distress, right? And his own need to protect himself. So he's done it before under distress. This isn't distress, right?
No.
What he falls into with this tree, I think the tree definitely is a symbol of showing what is capable in this world. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a central figure of like what magic represents in that.
It kind of, like Elodin talks about, like on that bridge, and like he's like, dangerous places, these edges, like things along those lines are good places for it. And you got this sword tree where the wind is blowing strong. You have the tree's got like knives for limbs or for leaves. Like that's a combination of danger, multiple combination of danger. And there's it seems to be like a power source. And so I do think that they tap into it, whether subconsciously or consciously. I think they do tap into it.
That definitely hits those descriptive things that Elodin talked about, places to look for it. I mean, this is hitting it on many levels. Yeah,
it's clearly, a power source that he's tapping into. That 100% is happening. I mean, he's like when he's like, at times it seemed the branches rode against the sky, spelling the name of the wind. That's him seeing the name of the wind. I mean, that's what is happening. He's starting to see the name of the wind, and he eventually does see it and is able to call it. But yeah, and then true to her word, Vashet found me a sparring partner. Her name is Celean. And he said, it's like, at last, a chance to prove myself, a chance to match wits with someone at my own level of skill, a real contest, which is fucking great. Considering she walks up and he's like, oh shit, it's fucking Pinta? It's like, I'm gonna fight Pinta? So it's getting all jacked up about that. And then it's like, no, wait, she wouldn't have me fight Pinta. That didn't make any sense. It's like, oh man. This is no. This is a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah, well, first it's just like, oh, wait, she's not wearing the red. So he's kind of, to a degree, it's like a stab of disappointment, which he also realized, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not fighting somebody, someone who has their reds because I'm not that good. But his ego kind of took over there, and he thought so. But then then he's horrified and
Yeah,
shamed by a
it's
little
fucking
girl
great.
showing up.
Yeah, they came closer still. My excitement guttered and died. It was a little girl, not even a young girl of 14 or so. It was a little girl, no more than 10 by my best guess. She was skinny as a twig and so short her head barely made it up to my breastbone. Her gray eyes were huge in her tiny face. I was humiliated. The only thing that kept me from crying out in protest was the fact that I knew Vashet would find it unspeakably rude. Fucking love that, man. Like it's little tiny twig of a thing, and she's just gonna fucking wreck this dude for the rest of the time.
Yeah, the whole the whole way it's presented, and then like the interaction where it's just like she just was called there. She's like, why am I gonna fight this dude? Like I don't get it. Like
And
why?
he's been training for a month. So he's been doing this for like
Focused.
44 days, and or at least like it gets to the point where he's been doing it for 44 days, partially some of the time I think training with Celean. I can't remember exactly where he mentions it's been a month, but at a month he's still not capable of beating Celean even 50-50.
Well, he does pull his punch, right? So there is that, but yeah, he gets handled. I mean, he from the get go, he basically gets handled. He does okay, given that again that he pulls his punch, which is obviously a huge mistake, but it's also understandable. But yeah, that I mean, it does kind of show that we know he has been advancing, but yeah, even still, he like these people, man, they train their whole lives it seems, and this chick's fucking, she's tremendous. This little girl.
You gotta punt that girl, man. She's got to full on punt her. She keeps punching you in the balls, just straight up punt her one time, and then maybe that will knock that shit off a little bit.
It doesn't sound like he can.
No, he grabs a hold of her and she's like smacks his hands off like it's nothing. It's like, what the fuck was that? I just grabbed this 10-year-old girl and she's just like, here, fucking sit on your ass now.
Yeah, I mean, she takes him over immediately.
But yeah, she's got a great. I mean, you immediately like Celean. She's an immediately great character, right from Jump Street. Like it is like Celean. This is Kvothe, Vashet said in a demic. This young girl looked me up and down appraisingly, then took an unconscious half step closer, a compliment. She considered me enough of a threat that she wanted to be close enough to strike at me if necessary. It was closer than an adult would have stood, but she was shorter. Polite greeting, I gestured. Celean returned my gesture. It might have been my imagination, but it seemed the angle of her hands implied polite, non-subordinate greeting. You're not above me. You're not my better. We're at worst, we're on the same level. I might be above you.
I mean, talk about like the intricacies of their hand language, or it's quite impressive to picture. Well, forget picturing, because it's extraordinarily difficult to picture how that would even be possible to get this minute with it. But the fact that they're able to is pretty tremendous.
Basically signaling, you're not my daddy.
Yeah, how do you do that with a hand gesture? Polite, but also like, no, you're not above me, bro.
You're not my real dad. Man mothers don't even exist.
I don't really respect you, basically.
Yeah.
Is what it kind of comes down to.
But yeah, and then so Vashet tells him that, she wants him to fight. And I love that Celene's like, why? Why would I waste my time with this? And she's like, because I'm telling you to. There's things you can learn from each other. Just do it because I say you will. And then, she tells Kvothe, she's like, Celene's Katan is quite exceptional. She has years of experience and is easily the match of two girls her size. Vashet taps Celean on the shoulder twice. Caution. Kvothe, on the other hand, is new to the Katan and has much to learn, but he's stronger than you and taller with better reach. He also possesses a barbarian's cunning. Also, Vashet continued to Celean, you will very likely have your mother's height when you are grown, so you should practice fighting those larger than yourself. Lastly, he's new to our language. For this you will not mock him. The girl nodded. I noticed Vashet hadn't specified I couldn't be mocked for other reasons. So like that that red hair, the fact that he's a full-time prostitute, or at least part-time prostitute with his loot. Yeah, go ahead and mock the shit out of him for those things.
The barbarian's cunning line, the more I think about it, I'm not really sure what she's getting at. Is it just unpredictability from their eyes?
Because they're culturally different, so they would they could surprise you in different ways that you wouldn't expect because of you're tuned into your own culture and your own way of doing things, and you guys have a very specific way of doing things. So like they have Kvothe would have a different approach to the world and to things, so that would you would see those, someone has a completely different perspective than you and brings in new ideas and in different ways of doing things. That would be something you would have to adjust to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or and then she could also be referencing 75 hands, right?
Yeah. I don't think she is, unless they're real weird with it.
Yeah, that's super...
His book's getting real uncomfortable real quick.
Yeah, if that's the case, yeah.
But yeah, and then so she goes, it tells them that they can strike hard but not viciously, and that if someone gets a submission on them, they're to submit immediately, not go and try to break out of it or anything like that. She's making sure that they know, like, this is practice. Don't try to hurt each other, and you try to learn from each other and get better, but don't try to hurt each other. And then Celean, I know this, Celean said, irritated. Bears repeating, Vashet said, stern rebuke. Losing a fight is forgivable. Losing your temper is not. This is why I brought you here instead of some little boy. Did I choose wrongly? I love how much they're just like constantly shitting on men and just the temperament of men. Like that they're just these barbaric cavemen that have no control over themselves. No ability to rein in their emotions, or at least not at a sophisticated level like the women.
Yeah, 100%, man. They repeatedly insinuate, there's no control. They have no control or lack control, where it's like it really has to be reined in, which you think could be advantageous.
And then like Kvothe breaks down their society. Like he tells the men, like just go to him, like, hey, don't be so emotional. And the whole dynamic crumbles.
Just completely shifts.
Yeah. Like, I thought you guys were in control. I thought you guys didn't lose your temper. Oh, is it that time of the month? Like, oh shit. Whole thing's blowing up. It's like, get out of here. We all have our tempers and our hot button issues. Now, I will agree, though, that, by and large, when you look at where you go to a bar, if there's a fight breaks out, it's almost surely going to be men fighting.
Yeah.
It's not likely it's going to be women. Unless sometimes you get some crazy girls. But also, there's about 50% chance that if there's two men fighting at a bar, a girl started that shit.
Yeah. That's that.
Some way, somehow, like there are
was stirring the pot.
There are girls that will start talking shit to dudes and force you into a fight, like to fucking keep from like some dude punching her or something. Yeah, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah,
but
instigating.
I shouldn't say 50%. That happens. It's not half the fights. Most of the fights are just men are fucking get drunk and
a lot of times
ready to throw down.
A lot of times it can be sports related, but a lot of times anything to talk shit about, but a lot of times it can be sports related. A lot of times it's guys go to a bar with the intent it's happening tonight. Yeah. If I get any reason, it's happening. They show up with that intent. I see it all the time. Well, not all the time, but enough that you can feel it. You can see a group that comes in, you're like, these dudes right here came in to look for a fight. That's their whole intention. They're reeking of it,
Yeah.
So
it's what, like, I have a couple nephews that have gotten in a bunch of fights at bars, and I'm like, like if it happens occasionally, could be a mix. Maybe it's somewhat you, somewhat them. Bad, wrong place, wrong time. If it's it's happening a lot, it's definitely you. It's
Yeah, 100%.
you're the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I love like there can ever be a question where it's like,
Yeah.
why am I always getting in fights? It's like, dude, it is 100%
Yeah.
what you're putting out there, man.
Yeah.
100 like that's what's happening. Yeah, I have a friend that's like he's just very into fighting. That's like his whole thing. He's like, it's only sport he watches, all this other shit. And he's like, why am I always getting people like looking at me weird? It's like, well, that's it. Somehow you're exuding that shit. I don't know. I don't walk around with you all day, but clearly that's what's going on here. Because I'm not getting accosted by people just randomly on a daily basis. Like, what the hell are you doing, dude?
No, I could easily go, another decade where I probably won't get in a fight.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Typically. But you can run into random chance. I mean, it is definitely
it happens.
out there.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens. But yeah, it's happening a lot. It's definitely you. You're the cause of.
Well, one of the ways to definitely increase the probability,
unless you're
possibility,
like you're getting in fights every night because you're going to like a fight club and you don't realize it, and it's just by accident.
I wasn't going to go that
some
far.
dude's just randomly like walking up, punching you in the face because you didn't know where you showed up. So, but then it's not necessarily that your fault that you're getting in fights. But you're being kind of stupid.
Yeah, I keep hanging out this Muay Thai place. I don't know why I keep getting in fights.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is that if you do go to bars to watch sporting events exclusively, you don't watch it at home, but you go to bars like 3 nights a week to watch sporting events, you're increasing the probability or possibility that it's going to happen.
Especially if you are vocal about your team and you talk shit to the other people.
Yes.
Yeah, you're eventually going to get into a fight in one of those situations. Going to happen. Yeah.
And clearly for good reason.
Not necessarily.
I'm joking, man. It's ridiculous, man. Such a ridiculous reason to get in a fight.
Sometimes people can cross.
You like that too?
Some people go overboard with it.
Well, yeah.
And, start getting personal and like starting a fight with you. Over sports.
That's definitely overboard. Dude, they're just too they're playing the same sport. There's not a lot they wear different colors and they represent a different city. That's about as big as it is.
We were at a bar watching the Celtics versus the Lakers, and I was standing there and not doing anything, just watching the game. I wasn't cheering for it. I was cheering against the Lakers, but I wasn't being vocal about it. I wanted Boston to win. It was Game 7. And then this dude just gets in my face and screams at me at the top of his lungs and grabs me by my shoulders and starts shaking me. And it was like, what the fuck is this dude doing? It was like, I could not believe it. And it was like, for whatever reason, this guy was drunk and he decided I was his enemy. And it was like, oh man, me and this dude are about to get into a fight. Ended up not. I ended up I talked shit to him and he never did anything, and then he ended up getting kicked out because I as I was walking by him, I whispered some unkind things about him and what kind of a person he was, and he lost his shit, but I whispered it. He made a big deal of his reaction was way over the top and expressive. And so the bouncers kicked him out and didn't notice that I initiated that aspect of it.
I remember Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and I remember you staring the dude down, but I don't remember him shaking, screaming in your face.
That's how it started. That's how it started.
I just remember what happened after. I didn't remember the starting bit of it. I didn't maybe I don't know if I even asked you what the fuck happened. I mean, I kind of knew. He's fucking way overboard for this team, that he's apparently is willing to almost die for, get pummeled for. And we weren't really,
I wasn't doing anything.
The Lakers.
I wasn't even being vocal. I was just standing there watching the game, minding my own business. It was crazy.
I remember the whole feeling.
Kind of stuff randomly can happen.
Yeah. Well, that bar specifically, I don't know if you remember this. We were playing foosball or something, just hanging out as just a few of us, and some dude was so plastered.
Oh yeah, you've told that story, yeah.
Yeah, that we were just laughing at him, and then he just comes over and it's like, we're just laughing at you, man. Look at you.
Yeah, I mean that was right by a college too, so you're more likely to get into a fight with the younger crowds, but yeah. But yeah, so sometimes sports brings it out.
Well,
So
it's alcohol
you
more
know,
than anything else, man.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, the alcohol is the big factor. But the alcohol combined with sports, people take it super fucking seriously.
They're getting emotional, man. Everybody's getting all emotional.
But yeah, and so and that's why men can't control themselves, and that's why she had to get Celean. And so, Celean looked down, apologetic regret, embarrassed acceptance. Vashet addressed us both. Injuring another through carelessness is not of the Lothani. And he goes, I couldn't see how my beating up a 10-year-old girl was of the Lothani either, but I knew better than say so. It's like, yeah, don't worry, it's not going to happen.
I kind of, knowing what we know, I kind of wished he would have said it so they could both just be like,
yeah,
whatever that would be in a damn hand dog.
Yeah, okay, dude. Settle down, Kvothe. This ain't going to go the way you think it is.
You know what, Celean? Don't hold back. Fuck this boy up.
Like when she looks at him, she's like, are you all red? It's like, many of us. Let me feel it. It's like, it's soft. Looks like rust.
Looks like rust. That's not what she said.
What did she say? Metal or something?
It looks like metal. I think she meant the sheen.
No, you made it's the rusty, falling apart, gross.
Yeah, you made it sound.
That's the gross part too. Gross. She touched his hair. Ugh, that's just disgusting. Like that's a interesting question to debate. Does Celean still have a soul?
Yeah, that's not going to upset anybody. That's all it takes, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, and then so I love the aspect too. Like she gestured polite thanks, then brought up her hands. Are you ready? I nodded uncertainly, bringing up my own hands. I wasn't ready. The deadpan humor, man. He's got a lot of these moments with the deadpan humor. It's fucking great. Love it. But yeah, so she darts forward at him, catching him flat-footed. Her arms drove out in a punch straight toward my groin. Raw instinct made me crouch, so it struck my stomach instead. I love that's her initial move. Tries to punch him as hard as she can right in the nuts.
God, dude. Yeah, just picturing like, all right, so she's super short, right? Because she doesn't even come up to his breastbone. Little girl that he has to fight against, like, oh, okay, let's see.
Hey, and immediately, cute little girl. Wham!
Immediately goes for his balls. Like, God damn it, man. That's setting the tone real quick. Oh, so this isn't fun. We're not playing.
This is less embarrassing for, the situation is less embarrassing in one respect and more embarrassing in another. About to get my ass kicked.
While I can still understand why he pulls his punch, once someone, pretty much, well, not anyone, but
I cannot.
Once somebody tries to hit me in the
scenario of punching a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah,
it would take. Yeah. I would let her punch me in the nuts so many times before I would lose my temper and swing back. It would take a lot.
Yeah, I guess, so when he pulls his punch, it's not that he was going to punch her in the head. Well, even still, yeah.
I couldn't even imagine punching like an adult woman. Unless my life was on the line and I had to defend myself. Not just for, she's throwing punches at me or something. I would just stop her from throwing punches at me. I wouldn't, now if she's like some MMA fighter and she's like dropping into a stance and cracking me upside my head, well, I'm gonna fucking fight back. I'm not gonna just take an ass whooping,
get pummeled to death.
Yeah, but barring that, I'm not just beating someone up for the hell of it, but because they challenge my manhood. That's not happening. I'm not gonna be worried about that. But yeah, and then so she goes and she tries to take him out, and then he's like, luckily by this point I knew how to take a punch, and a month of hard training had my stomach a sheet of muscles. So yeah, there he mentions it's been a month of hard training. Still, it felt like someone had thrown a rock at me, and I knew I'd have a bruise by dinner. I got my feet under me and inflict an exploratory kick at her. Wanted to see how skittish she was and hoped she'd back away so I could get my balance settled and make better use of my longer reach. Turned out she wasn't skittish at all. She didn't back away. Instead, she slipped alongside my leg and struck me squarely in the thick knot of muscle directly above my knee. Like, she just completely works him in this fight. It's hilarious. It's like she chased him. She made, talks about it like she made throw him lightning and started using moves on him. She faked a kick and I fell for it, giving her the opportunity to hit me right above the knee in the same place as before. She just keeps going back to the well. If he's not protecting stuff, he's going back to that well, hitting him there again. She keeps punching him in the balls for the rest of the time because he doesn't protect himself well enough.
One of the things I really like about the fight sequences, which I hope they can capture if they ever do show this in visual form, is that she does not allow him to get his balance.
Yeah.
She just keeps, like, visually that plays really well. And then the next part where she just keeps pushing him inch by inch by inch, where he's almost, but never gets his balance. Like, picturing that visually is like he is being owned, and it's in a much more subtle way than just like keep knocking him down. It's like you're giving him hope and then snatching it away immediately.
Yeah. And then he's like, but despite the bruises and the fall she'd already given me, I couldn't bring myself to throw a punch at such a tiny girl. I knew how solidly I could hit Tempe or Vashet, but so he tries to grab her and she breaks his grip from him immediately, uses a move that he's going to learn and he tries to use in the bar and it's not able to do. But so she has her own version of Sleeping Bear. And then, or I'm not Sleeping Bear, Celean made Break Lion. She had her own version of it. And then grabbed his wrist and pulled, lashing out to kick my leg in a fluid motion. I leaned, buckled, and she stretched me out flat above the ground. This landing wasn't soft, bore a jarring flop onto the grass. And then, she taps him on the top of the head twice, letting him know she could have knocked him out. And just completely emasculated him in a matter of a few seconds.
Yeah. And he does go as far as admitting that, he had sprained pride, but it wasn't that badly sprained because his time with Tempe and Vashet had taught him to appreciate skill, and her skill in the Khaitan was excellent. So definitely, those mentionings are actually important. We just got to see him get owned, but those mentionings sets that bar in terms of, just how great or how skilled she is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, he asked her to show him the version of Break Lion she is. She's like, this is mine. I made it. I'm not strong enough to use regular Break Lion against my mother or anyone your size. And so he has her show it to him, and he's not able to see what she does. And he's like, I got slow barbarian eyes. Could you make it again so I can learn it? And I love that she steps back and she's like, am I your teacher? Should I give something of mine to a barbarian who cannot even strike me in a fight? And he's like, I chuckled and came to my feet, bringing up my hands again. She laughed and turned to face me. Go. And didn't go much better for him. He's like, this time I was ready and knew what Celean was capable of. She was no sort of delicate flower. She was quick and fearless and aggressive. So he tries to go at her, but she still just fucking works him. Feigned a punch at his groin again, then pushed me slightly off balance with turning millstone. I staggered, but managed to keep my feet beneath me. Tried to regain my balance, but she brushed me again with turning millstone, then again and again. Each time only shoving me a few inches, but it kept me in a helpless, stumbling retreat until she managed to plant her foot behind mine, tripping me and sending me flat onto my back. Before I'd finished striking the ground, she'd already had a hold of my wrist and soon had my arm tangled firmly in the ivy on the oak. This pressed my face into the grass and putting uncomfortable pressure against my wrists and shoulders. So she gets him in a submission move, and he has to submit. Gets worked badly 2 times in a row. And one, it was like, okay, he wasn't ready. And then he's like, all right, I was ready this time. And then just as easily gets worked.
Yeah, this time he takes less hits, but I think, again, it almost seems even worse because she just keeps, like, pushing him.
Yeah.
Where I'm just picturing him, like, stumbling, like, when you're, like, about to fall on ice and you keep trying to regain your balance.
Yeah.
And she's doing this to him.
Yeah.
And then just does the trip move. Like, whoopsie. And and then puts his face to the ground, like completely owning him, man.
What happened?
You okay?
But and then her, man, fucking great. You really aren't very good. Fucking hilarious. Love that shit. He gets his ego checked big time when he's in Herrick. And he's like, I'm not used to striking young girls. Like, how could you be? You have to do something a lot to become used to it. I bet you have never done it before in your entire life.
That's a funny line too. I expect you have never struck a woman even once. It's like, well, where I'm from, that's actually like a good thing.
Yeah.
To be able to say that would be a good thing.
It's like, hey, if I know this girl named Dinah, if I fought her, I would kick her ass. Hespy would be tougher.
Would he though? She's got those blades on her thigh.
Yeah. And then he goes and fights Dinah, gets his ass kicked. It's like,
I like the idea.
I could kick. Well, I tried Debbie. Debbie kicked my ass. So
it's too bad Debbie.
This is not looking good.
It's too bad Debbie didn't go for his balls, and then he tries to fight another woman, and she goes for his ball. It just become a recurring theme that everybody goes for his balls.
It's like, why do you wear a what do they call those?
He had
those
an
things?
iron. They brought up what was it? A brass codpiece.
Codpiece, yeah. It's like, why do you wear a codpiece everywhere you go? Because I fought women. I know how it goes.
Everybody's going for my nuts.
They punch you right in the balls over and over again.
Well, and Tempe knows how important his balls are too. So, got to protect those. It's a sign of leadership, right?
It's like, that's why he's got them, you think his balls were big before. Like, after Celean got done with them, swallowed those things up before, he's got some massive hairy balls.
Jesus.
But yeah. And then, he's like, well, I mean, where I come from, it's not right to fight women. It's like, I don't get what you're saying. So he explains to her that women don't fight where he's from. And she's like, oh, okay, you mean they got a secret K-Tan? And then she brings out, like, Vashet has such a thing. I've asked her to show it to me, but to me many times, but she will not. And he's like, Vashet knows another K-Tan? And Celean says she was schooled in the path of joy before she came to us. She looked over at her, face serious, as if she would pull the secret out of the other woman by sheer force of will. Someday I will go there and learn it. I will go everywhere, and I will learn all the K-Tans there are. I will learn the hidden ways of the ribbon and the chain and the moving pool. I will learn the paths of joy and passion and restraint. I will have all of them. So I'm betting that path of ribbon, you got to think that's like a school, the Wraith School or something like that.
Yeah. I like all these mentionings. Like, you can sort of picture what the differences would be suggested there. It makes me personally really dig this character.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
Like, to have this type of motivation, like, in saying it, and that he goes as far as explaining, like, she's not just saying it like with a childish fancy. I love the suggestion of it as if she were daydreaming of eating an entire cake. Neither was she boastful, as if she were describing a plan she had put together on her own and thought very clever. Said it with a quiet intensity.
Yeah, and then so she says, when she spoke, Celean didn't say this in a tone of childish fancy, as if she were daydreaming of eating the entire cake. Neither was she boastful, as if she were describing a plan she had put together on her own and thought very clever. Celean said it with a quiet intensity. It was almost as if she were simply explaining who she was. Not to me, she was telling herself. I will go to your land too, she said, absolute, and I will learn the barbarian K-Tan your women keep secret from you. And he tells her, you'll be disappointed because they don't fight. I know what the words mean. It's not a lack of ability to communicate in your language. They simply don't fight at all.
I love this. I love that she goes there though, because she's like, yeah, they have something. I'm gonna figure it out because that's what
they don't tell you, but I'll get that out of them. They'll tell me.
I love so that confidence in herself. But then, I mean, she's not necessarily taking it this far, but I like that idea. It's like, yeah, they don't tell you, of course. I mean, look at you. You don't know shit,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. You can't even hit a girl. Why would they tell you they're Katan? You have to earn their respect first. There's no way you could earn the respect of someone you can't even hit. I love her look. Like I had half expected her to look horrified, but instead she simply stood there blankly, hands motionless, as if at a loss for words what to think. It was as if I just explained to her that women where I come from didn't have any heads. It's great explanation of her look. Just complete befuddlement.
Yeah,
This doesn't make your world doesn't make any sense. What is wrong with your people? And we play music and believe in man mothers. So
yeah. Swallow all of that. Good luck making sense of any of this.
Yeah, and so he kind of explains to her, when she's like, so what do they do if they don't fight? And he's like, many things. They make pictures out of stones. They buy and sell money. They write in books. Celean seemed to relax as I recited this list, as if relieved to hear these foreign women, empty of any Katan, weren't strewn around the countryside like boneless corpses. But they heal the sick and mend wounds. They play, I almost said music and sing songs, but caught myself in time. They play games and plant wheat and make bread. Celean thought for a long moment. I would rather do those things and fight as well. But yeah, and then you get also the great aspect where he's like, some women do, but for many it is not considered of the Lithani. Use the phrase of the Lithani because I could not think of how to say proper behavior in Ademic. Celean gestured sharp disdain and reproach. I was amazed how much more it stung coming from this young girl in her bright yellow shirt than it had ever come from Tempe or Vashet. She's like, the Lithani is the same everywhere. It is not like the wind changing from place to place. The Lithani is like water, I responded without thinking. It is itself unchanging, but it shapes itself to fit all places. It is both the river and the rain. She glared at me. It was not a furious glare, but coming from the Adem, it had the same effect. Who are you to say the Lithani is like one thing and not another? Who are you to do the same? Celean looked at me for a moment, the hint of a serious line between her pale eyebrows. Then she laughed briefly and brought her hands up. I am Celean, she proclaimed. My mother is of the third stone. I am Adem born, and I am the one who will throw you to the ground. She was as good as her word.
I like that the back and forth is interesting how quickly, at least it jumped out at me, how quickly, because before Kvothe had to put himself into spinning leaf to get these answers. Now it's just without thinking immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes right into it and gives what sounds like really good responses to a little girl basically calling him out nuh-uh. He's like, uh-huh.
I love her fucking swagger, man.
Yeah, that's also what, and that's what ends the chapter, is that she's pretty dope. She's a really cool character.
My mother is of the third stone. I am Adem born, and I will be the one who will throw you to the ground. It's fucking great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, that the dynamic there. So Kvothe's getting owned by this little girl, but in a way, what he says now, he's using the term the Lithani as a substitution, which was incorrect, right? So that brings the subject up, but I feel like he wins that argument against Celean, where he's basically like, well, it's not up to you to say what is, what isn't.
Yeah.
Although they all kind of constantly say what is and what isn't. But then I think it seems like a really great answer, which is funny because I don't fucking know what it is, but I feel like I have a grasp of what it is, right? From having read the books, or read the book. And we get those.
But you can, you can somewhat relate to it in the fact that they're trying to come up with basically a set of morals and ethics, a guiding, a religious tenets, those kind of things that are guiding you on the proper behavior is basically, so you can relate to it in that. We have, moral discussions, we have ethical discussions, we have religious discussions. We can relate to it in that level. What is their interpretation of what is the right thing? It, can differ from ours. So it can be a different thing. So that, brings some nuance into it. But, for the large part, that's how you can understand it.
Yeah, but I guess a big part of what they're sort of suggesting is that it's very much case sensitive, right? It's very much dependent on the circumstances, and it's humbling, right? You must have humility with the Lithani, and you can't pretend to know with exactitude, right? But yeah, no, I like
I
especially.
humbly can know it extremely well because of my humbleness, and
Jesus Christ. I especially like the idea that
100%
it's
agree on that.
yeah. I especially like the idea that it's like water, that it is itself unchanging, but it shapes itself to fit all places. It is both the river and the rain, like things like that. It's like super poetic, which is Kvothe at his best. When he's not thinking, he's poetic. Next chapter, he tries to be poetic, and it's fucking terrible. He needs Ambrose's help, but
Yeah.
but that's, and it's kind of another. I mean, we get that quite a bit with. Well, I mean, that's just emphasized so much. Like when he looks at the tree, he's not trying to look for the wind, but he sees it.
Yeah.
It's again, it gets suggested so much that it's when he's not thinking, that's when he's killing it. And I thought about that, and I don't know, this may be completely out of the fucking blue, but it occurred to me, and I had never brought it up before. But you know how the Rue were basically slaughtered, right? We heard that from Simon, right? Or their discussion
No,
between
Kvothe
Kvothe
told
and Simon.
Simon. Yeah.
Yeah. And that discussion, well, that's kind of the first we heard of it. I wonder if a part of what was happening there was that there's knowledge, or there was knowledge at some point, that there is music, there is magic in their music and their ability specifically. And, there was a time where malfeasance suggests we're burning you alive. Well, there may have been a point where it was like that war of ideas, where basically saying we have to eliminate these people who are, if they didn't fall in line with the church, so to speak, right?
Yeah, that would
and
be
they're capable.
my guess of it, more than like some magical thing. I would suspect that because it was the Aetern Empire, and how much of the Aetern Empire was about the spreading the Talon religion around the world, and there seemed to be like a crusade aspect to the Aetern Empire. Like I would think like having the storytellers who don't believe in that and are not practicing the same religion or going out and telling stories, like you would want to nip that in the bud. Like they're out there countering what your intended purpose is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That would be a clear enough motive.
You got a propaganda, mission, and you got these people who are going from town to town disrupting your propaganda. That would be a problem for you. I'm betting that's what was going on. Why they were killing the Rue was over being, them countering their ability to spread propaganda.
Yeah, part of the reason why it does kind of occur to me as well is if you have these people that are in that role as the evil authority, right, that are justifying a reason to eliminate certain groups. Well, if they feel threatened from a threat towards their mission of spreading propaganda, it could also be they just find them as being too powerful because they have some sort of magical ability. So then cast them in that light of, well, they're not with us, right? They're heretics.
Yeah,
So we need to eliminate them. And it could be a little bit of both. I don't know. It kind of popped up in my mind because it does seem like, I don't remember what it was that specifically in this chapter that made me think of it, but it did seem like there's something in regards to, again, music, or sort of emphasizing that magic within. I don't know. I don't know what it was that popped up in my mind that suggested it, but felt like mentioning it. So, boom.
Bam. Well, and then so the next chapter we got is 118, titled Purpose. And in this chapter, we get more fighting between Vashet and Kvothe, and we also get his great poem for beating the shit out of a little girl. And then Vashet puts him in his place when he tries to, start. He should have learned his lesson at this point when he pressed the bounds of what the purpose of fighting is, and he got checked hard on it by Vashet, and he does not learn that lesson in this chapter.
Yeah, she gives him a very, very clear lesson.
Yeah.
Very, very clear. I mean, if you're about to have your shoulder dislocated or your wrist separated, there's a whole bunch of things she was controlling. You think that would be effective? But yeah, that poem is a very, very clear lead into book 3, Slam Jam Poetry. His need for Ambrose, because he needs some guidance in terms of channeling his poetic abilities.
I disagree with you in the sense, like, you were talking shit about that poem. That poem is fucking hot fire.
Oh no,
that is fucking liquid lit on fire.
It's gas.
That is liquid lit on fire, man. That's real fire.
It's not. It's terrible.
No. You're probably not hearing it.
You don't
right.
understand.
You probably got a
poetry.
bad copy of the book or something.
Well, this one I listened to. So
well, you downloaded.
I need to read it.
You downloaded an audio file that's got him saying the wrong words or something.
Well,
you should have got the audio file that I got. And that one is hot fire.
Hot lit on fire, liquid fire?
Yeah, liquid lit on fire.
I've never heard that term. Is that a new, the real popular term these days?
That's a real popular term with the young kids these days.
Hot liquid on fire, lit on fire.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll update my lingo.
Yeah, start saying that a lot. And then, so Vashet and him are fighting, and you get another more mention of the wind. He keeps bringing up the wind and the importance of the wind. Like, he's like, after all this time, I barely noticed the wind anymore. It was much part of the landscape as the uneven ground beneath my feet. Some days it was gentle, and it did little more than make patterns in the grass or flick my hair into my eyes. Other days it was strong enough to make the loose fabric of my clothes crack and snap against my skin. It could come at you from unexpected directions without a moment's warning, pushing you as firmly as a hand between your shoulder blades. So he's obviously the wind is just a part of their society, and that's why when he started, the more he notices the wind, but it's not just simply noticing it, it's more just becomes a part of him and this where he's at and just a part of his surroundings. Then I think this is why he is able to name it so well here, is because of these aspects that he mentions.
It's really interesting the way he talks about it here, because some days it was gentle and did little more than make patterns in the grass or flick my hair into my eyes. That patterns in the grass is huge.
Yeah.
Right. The patterns is everything. But then he goes on to talk about snapping the fabric against his skin and then feeling like it's pushing against him. So those things become much more concrete and things you can envision and feel. But it's the patterns in the grass. So it's almost like
it's not the first time he's mentioned the patterns from the wind in these chapters.
With the tree, it was huge. Yeah. But what I like about that in terms of Rothfuss's ability and kind of how he's weaving that in is he makes it real clear and then he kind of distracts you.
Yeah.
But he's still talking about the wind. So yeah, it's great. I mean, his ability to weave these things in a subtle manner they're admirable.
Yeah. And like too, where he's like, why do we spend so much time on my hand fighting? He's like, 'cause you suck at it. You're not good.
I asked, why do we spend so much time on my hand fighting?
Embarrass me every time we fight.
I like that when he asks, he says, I asked Vashet as I made picking clover. That one's weird. So when I'm picturing Sleeping Bear and these other ones, I can kind of picture, or like Maiden combing her hair, brushing her hair. I can picture picking clover as a fighting thing. It seems like what?
Well, that's like she mentions the point of it isn't to make the information more accessible or more easily understandable. The point of the words is to hide what the movement is and what it does and what it actually does. So it wouldn't be like someone picking a clover. The point of them saying picking clover is for it to be like, what does that even mean? You don't want them to know. So it's could be anything. It could be like throwing bows, is picking daisies.
It's when what the hell? Beatrix Kiddo pulls out what's her face's eye.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's when she rips the eye.
Yeah, picking the clover.
That's picking
ripping
clover.
The eyeball out. Yeah. Well, then why is he even trying that on her? What a jerk.
He's mad. He's mad. Why do you spend so much time on my hand fighting as I try to rip your eyes
out? I'll get your eye one of these times. Like, why do you keep going for that move, you jerk?
Nothing above the neck, and he's trying to rip her eyes out?
Yeah. It's like Celean going for his groin has got him, on edge. He's always trying to eyeball poke out move.
It is pretty funny, like the way this does start, because he's like, "Why don't we keep working on this? Because you suck at it." Yeah, but I suck at the other one too. Let's balance out the suckiness.
Yeah. It's like, I'm even worse at it. She's like, yeah, that's why I don't let you fight with a sword, because you're worse at it. You are worse at it to the point of being dangerous. You can't even fight in a semi-controlled manner.
Remind me, does he even get to the point where he trains with the sword?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. He eventually gets out of there and he fights with the sword against the rapers.
No, I mean, yeah, but I mean, training with the Adem, I don't remember if we get a lot of detail about him actually, like, getting much better. Yeah, because,
like, when he does his, like, testing against Kvothe, he was going in there with the sword. They give him a sword. Yeah, he has to do training with a sword. And then, she trains him how, like, to incorporate his nerd cloak into his K-Tan, too, eventually. How to fight with the cloak on. And she's like, how to use it, those kind of things. So, yeah, he definitely learns more and gets better at it, at the sword. But, yeah, he never becomes, like, anything resembling a master with it, but he becomes competent enough where, he could fight these guys that are just thieves and rapists and that kind of shit.
I just pictured something that would work so well, and when they make a show out of this, instead of a cloak, when he's with the Adem, and what is actually made for him by Fella, it's not a cloak, but it's a varsity letter jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to modernize this thing.
It's like literally what Michael J. Fox wore in Teen Wolf. It's like the same jacket. And that's how they teach him how to fight with it. Like, it gives him some great abilities.
Nice, cool. Talking about, like, you gonna get a letter jacket? No. Like, no, I'm not wearing that.
Yeah, I never got one either.
Super freaking nerdy. But yeah, I like I think for a TV show, one of the things that they really need to do, like in these moments, because there is so much with the, like, training, it's going to be really cool when they go 80s montage, doing like the, like the take it to the limit, doing that song. It's going to be fucking sweet looking, him and Vashet practicing. And it's just like, and they're doing the, like, take me to the limit song, and it's just Celean over and over again, just drawing him straight in the nuts.
That's it. We talked about that with the Seagal movies. That's another thing with, like, the 80s. As soon as it breaks into that, you're like, wait, what? What am I watching now? Like, what just happened? Yeah, that's hilarious.
Gotta have a montage during these moments. That's gonna be a big part of the movie.
Dude, if I remember right, I think Scarface even has one that's very much like 80s
Scarface
material.
has a montage. Oh yeah. When they're making money. Yeah.
And
they're
like,
bringing in the money.
Rush, get the yayo. Get the yayo. I think that's it, man. I think it's like that's the song they play while they're out there just hustling, pulling out, getting new Porsches and shit.
That movie, man, when that, like, chainsaw scene is so fucking wild the first time you see it, especially if you haven't seen anything like that before. Yeah. Like, that scene is wild.
Yeah, it's very intense.
That was way ahead of its time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that it definitely leaves you with some certain feelings for sure.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Great movie. But yeah, and then so because he pushes her on this kind of stuff, and she's like, you're too wild, you could hurt someone. He's like, I thought that was the point of this. And she frowned and reached out and casually to grip my wrist and shoulder, twisting me into sleeping bear. Her right hand held my wrist over my head, stretching my arm at an awkward angle, where her left pressed firmly against my shoulder. Helpless, I was forced to bend at the waist, staring at the ground. Veh! I said in submission. But Vashet didn't release me. She twisted and pressed my shoulder. The pressure against my shoulder increased. Small bone in my wrist began to ache. Bah! I said a little louder, thinking she hadn't heard me. But she still held me, twisting a little harder at my wrist. Vashet! I tried to turn my head to look at her, but from this angle, all I could see was her leg. Like, she's teaching him very, should have really taken this lesson to heart, where she's like, look, if that's the point, why don't I just break your arm? If it's to hurt you, why don't I hurt you? He's like,
why would I let you
go? Not
go?
what I mean. She's like, okay, then what is it? What do you mean? He's like, it's, that's not what I meant. He's like, what is the purpose of Sleeping Bear? She asked calmly. To incapacitate your opponent. Like, hey, you're not fucking thinking clearly here, man. She's asking you what she should do to you, and you just told her you should incapacitate me. It's like, okay, and I should incapacitate you.
Yeah, there's a couple parts. I mean, here there's a couple parts where it almost suggests, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deeply, but in the last chapter where he asks Celean, she knows another form of the whatever, the Catan. Is like, yeah, you fucking know that. Like, fine, maybe he forgets, but he knows that she started another school.
Yeah. Well, regardless of what her skill level is like, he's not understanding the lesson that she's trying to impart on him, and then and it's also the same lesson that Abinthy tried to impart on him, and he's not picking up on it. It's like, what we're teaching you is dangerous, and it can be used for violence, and it could be used for evil. That's not the purpose of it, though. It's not to hurt people. It's not to incapacitate people. It's not to help you go kill Cinder. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is control, to learn control. Like, and I 100% agree. Like, one of the benefits of learning how to fight is it eliminates some of that fear that you have, the unknown. Why it is good to, get into some classes and those kind of things where it's not necessarily like go out and start fighting people, but to get into some controlled environments where you are in physical combat with people, so that you do get used to it a little bit. It eliminates some of that fear, and that it does give you a bit of control of yourself in those situations, if it's not something that you're immediately terrified of. Yeah. And she's like, that's not the point. Isn't to hurt someone. It is to be in control, so that if someone tries to hurt you, you can stop them. But then you're in control of the situation, where if you only need to go as far as you need to go, and you're in complete control of the situation, where it's like, like punishing a child. Like, I don't need to, like, Tippy didn't need to kick the shit out of Tam. He didn't, like, after he incapacitated him, he didn't go and give him a kick to the ribs. It's like he was in control of the situation. He was in control the whole time. He did enough to stop them, but he didn't need to go any further than that. And the purpose wasn't to hurt all those people. That wasn't the goal. It was, it was about, these guys were itching for a fight, and he took control of the situation. He had control enough where he used this situation to demonstrate their fighting skills and that kind of stuff. He did it to further the reputation of the school, but it wasn't about him settling a score and just whooping some ass.
No, it was about proving that he could own them, because that was what the argument was about. And then proving that he has the ability, he has greater than 3, whatever the fuck the argument was. You're saying you're better than 3 of us. Well, it's, yeah, and you can invite the woman over.
Yeah.
Well, not as an insult, but to try to even the playing field.
And I don't even think it was like, to Tempe, it was necessarily about like proving that. It was just, that's a side aspect of it. It's like, look, they're challenging me into a fight. They're going to come at me, and I can't just kneel to them, because that is going to hurt the reputation of our school. And this is where we make our money. So there's a limit to my ability to back away from a fight, because it's going to hurt our number one resource, our number one commodity. So this guy's backing me into a corner where I'm going to have to fight him, but I don't need to just, hurt these people. He's like, I gotta beat them, and beating them convincingly bolsters our reputation, bolsters our school, and we have that benefit of it. But the point of it is, the reason I trained and I learned all these things is so that in this situation, when I got some jackass challenging me, I'm in 100% control and I can do what I want to the limit that I want. And the purpose isn't for me to go to these bars looking for a fight. The purpose is that if someone comes looking for a fight with me, I'm in control of the situation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant by own them, is like you're owning them, not to fucking stand atop them and yell at the top of your lungs. It's just showing you control the situation, and you can wield them if you need to. That's kind of the whole point. And that's interesting that you put it that way, because that definitely fits. I mean, Kvothe goes through this with Elodin, where he's not really seeing what he's trying to teach him. He's learning from Aventhy, but like you said, he's not learning the responsibility, right? With Vashet, it's more like he's not understanding the bigger picture of what they're doing, which is interesting because that's the big part of what the Lithani is also a part of, but it's not all of it, right? So it's just a difference of perspective that they're emphasizing, which is definitely respectable in terms of what they do.
Yeah, he's looking at this as a weapon to be used to hurt people. And she's like, no, that's not the yes, it does give you that ability. And she's like, right now you are mine to do with as I wish. I can move you or break you or let you free. And whether she, moves you, breaks you, lets you free, like her actions are guided by the Lithani. What is the right thing to do in this situation? And there's nuance to that. It might be the right thing might be to break you, or to let you free, which she does let him free. And the right thing was to try to teach him a lesson. He's looking at this as a weapon and not as something to put you more in command of yourself in your situation and give you more options. Is what all this training does is it broadens your options out there. The better the fighter you are and the more in control of a situation you are, the more options you have in a situation where if you're fighting someone and there's nothing they can do against you, you don't need to fucking whoop their ass. You can, like, if you're fighting Daydan and you're in complete control, you can just smack him in the fucking face and you can beat him that way. Yeah. And you don't need to hurt him. You can demonstrate that this is not going to go well for you. But Tempe was in complete control of these situations. And that's the thing he's not grasping this as. He's just thinking of it as like, I'm going to get this information, and I'm like, if someone starts a fight with me, I'm going to fucking whoop the shit out of them with it.
This is Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai.
Yeah, he's fucking bringing in that Cobra Kai energy. And she's like,
feeling,
no, we're fucking Miyagi-Do here. He needs to be Daniel LaRusso and not the other one. Forget his name.
Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny Lawrence, yeah.
What does the guy yell in the first one? Sweep the leg.
Put him in a body bag.
That was good delivery, too. I was going to say sweep the leg, Johnny, but the more memorable one. It's the same character, too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, his coach tells him sweep the leg. He doesn't yell that, though. So it would have been bad form yelling that out real loud. Cheap shot the shit out of him. From your coach. But yeah,
pull his eye out of his face. What is it called? What is pull the eye out of the face? Pick Clover. Pick his Clover.
But yeah, so she tells him that, and he's like, I would prefer free. And she goes, then ask calmly, what is the purpose of Sleeping Bear? Control. I felt her hands release me, and I stood, slowly rolling my shoulder to ease the ache. Shed stood there, frowning at me. The point of all this is control. First, you must have control of yourself. Then you can gain control of your surroundings. Then you can gain control of whoever stands against you. This is the Lithani. And again, that is, that's what I'm saying. It is to present you with more options. The better you are, the more skilled you are, the more control of a situation you are, and then you're able to do exactly what you need to do and not any more.
That's very much with what we hear about how Cheyenne fights. You don't move more than you have to. Right?
Yeah.
It's perfect movement.
Yeah. And that's their philosophy and their guiding principles. And that's why they're not just brutes out there going and taking whatever job and just, pummeling the shit out of people. They don't, and they're not out there to just embarrass people and make them look bad. That's not their purpose. If you don't fuck with Tempe, he's not going to just go out there and pick a fight with you for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he could beat the shit out of all of them.
Yeah, and if you think about like what we were talking about earlier in terms of hand-to-hand combat, I mean, if they didn't have the Lithani, I mean, they could run roughshod over like whole societies, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the population and whatnot. I mean, they could rob banks, they could do all kinds of craziness.
Yeah.
Because of what they're capable of.
Like Tempe eventually put Dedan in his place and let him know what's up when he had to, when it became necessary. Kvothe, had he been at Tempe's level, like Kvothe on day one is just beating the shit out of Tempe.
Well, and
his temper is going to get the best of him, and he's going to snap and just whoop his ass.
Well, and what's interesting about that as well is once Tempe does this to Dedan leaves him like they become friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So he does exactly what he needs to do to get exactly what he needs as a result.
Yeah.
And that's dependent on both parties, but totally works. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
What Kvothe does not work. It's continuously, he just continuously comes back at him. It took him hooking up with Florian, right? For Dedan to then respect him. But he also did get owned by Hespe, so there's also that. He's been, what do you call it? He's been neutered to a degree.
Yeah.
He's like a broken horse at this point or whatever.
But yeah, and then so he also kept his meetings with Celean in the grassy field next to the sword tree. I looked forward to these encounters despite the fact that she thrashed me with cheerful ruthlessness every time we fought. It took me 3 days before I finally managed to beat her. I love this aspect. This dope fucking lit on fire. Liquid lit on fire. And that's an interesting verse to add to the long story of my life, isn't it? Come listen all, and I will tell a tale of brave and daring deeds, of wonders Kvothe the Bloodless wrought, and of the time he bravely fought, a twiggling girl no more than 10, and listen how it came to pass, the mighty blow he bravely dealt, that knocked her sprawling to the grass. And of the glow and joy, and of the glow of joy he felt.
It's terrible.
That is great. Seppi should have said the mighty blow he bravely dealt that knocked her sprawling to her ass. Or on her ass.
Yeah, the first half actually is quite lyrical. Almost seems like a holiday little thing. And then the second half just really becomes very Ambrose trying to hit on Fella. And,
that's a great line. And listen how it came to pass, the mighty blow he bravely dealt that knocked her sprawling to the grass.
It's terrible.
It's fucking great. It's a great line. It's perfect. That is brilliant. A lit on fire, liquid fire, lit on fire.
No. Nope. So again, this is showing he's getting there. He's getting there, but he needs
that's just milk
Ambrose's
chocolate.
help.
That's just milk chocolate, as the kids say.
You're gonna bring some new ones, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's what everybody says. Like when you drop a hot verse like that, they say, "Yeah, man, it's milk chocolate."
No one.
Yeah, everybody does. That's a thing.
No,
it's gonna be a thing now. Our 60 million listeners, all the kids are gonna be saying it.
Awful.
So
the very next sentence, awful as it might sound, I was proud. And I think he's even admitting, yeah, that was bad. My little verse there, awful as it might sound.
He was proud of the fact that he whooped her, not of the song.
No, he said, yeah, I think it's both. I think it's a double.
He's not saying,
double helix
he's saying as awful as it sounds to being proud of beating up a little girl. I was proud of that.
There's that, but he's also...
That song is milk chocolate, man. You can't even deny that.
Milk chocolate. It's fucking spoiled milk is what it is.
But yeah, and justifiably so, though. Celean herself congratulated me when it happened, seeming more than a little surprised that I had managed it. So yeah, you could take that. She heard that song and she was like, holy shit, dude, dropping milk chocolate on my ass.
Oh!
It's like snapping.
Yeah. She's covering her face with one fist, and the other one's way up in the air. That's what they do in this world too. When someone drops a hot verse,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she
She starts playing that meme of that kid, like when he says that thing, and the other kids like walk with the face, like sitting there walking in and out of the screen, like, oh shit! All the kids behind him going crazy. She just pulls out that meme.
They literally bring that into the film.
They have drawings of it. Yeah, drawings of it. They have different drawings of different stages of the GIF. So like she does a little flip book of it.
Yeah, it's right in front of the tree. So they have the sword tree in the back, and they have a whole gathering around a fight, and they all go, "Whoa!" Yeah, okay.
But yeah, and then it ends with them sitting around the tree, the sword tree, and she would go. She starts making a game out of it, darting in and out of it, and then not only like darting in and out of the leaves falling down that are like knives, but she starts doing moves to it, doing the moves of the Catan to avoid the things, which is exactly what he eventually does too.
Mm-hmm.
He starts using these moves, but she's so like small and slender and stuff. I guess like it's easier for her to do it and avoid these things because she's covering less area than a full grown adult. But because like Kvothe and Tempe and like they all got cut up from this.
Yeah, when we hear this, when you read this, it's like, so she's like extraordinary. Now I get that she's small and all, but this sounds like, holy shit, she's like making a game out of this, and this is supposed to be like one of the hardest things for them to accomplish. At least we get that feeling.
She seems like got a very bright future for herself with all this stuff. Like maybe be like a Penta level fighter.
But no wonder she's talking about being freaking Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
combining all these schools and
But yeah, and there's and I like just like at first like he sees her go running out there to do it, and he kind of like starts to jump up to stop her, but doesn't know what to do. It's like, holy shit, this girl's insane.
Yeah.
She's a fucking badass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool too. Like when she comes out and like jumps in the air, does a cartwheel.
When he talked about that, yeah, like he would do that one little perfect cartwheel. I kept thinking of her like jumping up in the air, going like freeze frame.
Yeah, man, she's having fun. She's having a good time.
And then it says it ends with she only stopped when Vashet returned. I watched from a distance as Vashet stormed over and gave the girl a stern telling off. Couldn't hear what was said, but their body language spoke volumes. Celean looked down and shuffled her feet. Vashet shook a finger and cuffed the girl on the side of her head. It was the same scolding any child receives. Stay out of the neighbor's garden. Don't tease the bitten sheep. Don't play tag among the 1,000 spinning knives of your people's sacred tree.
It's pretty wild. It's. I wish we had something to compare it to, because the way that it reads, it's like, man, it seems like it's something that's otherworldly in terms of her ability, but then it's almost like, was it easier than I thought it was? So it doesn't seem so. Doesn't seem so the other pictures we get of this.
No, it doesn't seem like it's easy to do at all, like considering how many of them are scarred up from it. And then you see like when Kvothe goes to go through it, if he doesn't call the name of the wind, he wouldn't have been able to do it.
Seems like it's impossible.
Yeah. He was just like, what? There's no way. He's like, I'm going to get cut the fuck up running through this.
Yeah, there's some craziness going on in this, say, Dimray place.
But like I said, they live there. Like what helped him is he sees the pattern of the wind, and that's how he's able to kind of dip in and out of it. Like he sees it and he knows exactly where the stuff's going to fall. And so I think like if you live there and you're born and raised there, and this is just what you do, and you're always around this tree, and you're always in this area where the wind is very vibrant, like you probably get in tuned with that sleeping mind, even if it's just subconsciously. You probably start to get in tune with the scene, same way Kvothe starts to get in tune with it, just subconsciously, until it finally all just snaps into place for him. Maybe they don't have the moment where they see the name of the wind, but they just kind of like this vague impression of the wind is what they're able to see, maybe. And
Yeah, that's
so
why
they're
I'm,
getting like this vague impression of their sleeping mind taking over, and it's helping guide them.
yeah, I was gonna say, why don't they talk about it? When they have all these lessons, why is this not part of it?
Well, think of how secret they keep their information. You would think
Mhm.
that they're not going to divulge everything to Kvothe. He's an
'Cause
outsider. The whole point of this is like, can this guy even be trusted at all?
yeah, I
He
mean,
wouldn't
because
just be like, oh, the reason we're so good at fighting is because XYZ. Da, 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 da.
a big part of it
And they might not
feels
even know.
yeah. I mean, part of it feels like almost like that flow state that athletes hit, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just everything's going in. If you ever play any sport where it's like there are certain days where it's like, dude, everyone get out of my way.
Yeah.
It's like I'm on it today. Like I'm just.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that at my job. I've had that with sports as well and other things where it's just like, dude, I'm on this shit today.
Yeah, you get in
And
a rhythm. You get in
Yeah.
sync, and you start singing, and bye bye bye. You know what I'm saying?
No. No, I mean, I knew everything you were saying until that point. Then that was all over.
Can't help it. I said in sync, and then it immediately
Your
became
pop music references,
pop
man.
music thing. But yeah, I mean, they're no fucking New Kids on the Block, but the ADEM are in sync at times.
Jesus.
Not the New Kids on the Block, though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I mean, I do think that I think that is what is largely happening is they are more in tune with their sleeping mind through living there, and I think that's why someone like Cheyenne, who is very in tune with this shit, is taking perfect steps and dodging things exactly with the amount of steps that is necessary. And the best, Celean, who's got a really good K-tan, is able to kind of dance and dart in and out of these things. Not perfectly. She messes up at times, has to get out of there. But when she's on it and she's kind of tuned in, she's doing it perfectly.
Yeah, it seems. Well, that's an interesting thing to think about because there could be that sense of it where in their world they talk about it, or perhaps it's subconscious. Perhaps it's they've lived here, so they evolve into it, and it just becomes part of their experience. To where that's just being of the Lethani, right? It's just fighting your best.
Yeah.
Is allowing yourself to not. Well, again, man, it ties into the sleeping mind in such a cool way. All of this again, it all ties. Fucking Rothfuss, man. Like everything we get from Elodin, and then that kind of. What's so tremendous about it is his enigmatic sort of example ridden approach that doesn't really tie it clearly, doesn't bring it clearly, and because we're getting from Kavoth's frustration with it, not seeing it clearly, but then we get to see how it ties into other experiences, and then we get to see it and how Kvothe accesses the name of the wind, and then how that evolves over time as well. So all of that sort of coming together it's such a cool. I mean, I guess in a way it's a magic system, but it's not sympathy.
Yeah,
it's not really naming. I mean, it's well, it is, but there's a different.
It's 100%
access.
naming, but
yeah, but it's a different access point, right?
He's starting to get more control. It's a more controlled.
But the interesting
naming.
But the really interesting thing about it is it's more control without you can't try to control it. If you do, then you defeat the purpose, right? Or
well, eventually he starts to get to the point where he can control it. Like, Elxadal can really control it. If he needs to call it, he can call it. He doesn't need to be some emotional state. He just does it in a classroom sitting with Kvothe. Kvothe's like, can you show me? It's like, yeah.
Well, I guess, yeah. So I guess the discovery process.
Yeah, it's just like eventually it's like that once you got that door open, got the hinges oiled up a little bit, you can kind of open it and close it as needed. So and I think that's what Spinning Leaf is doing for him, is it's greasing the hinges for him.
Super cool, man. It's a super
cool. Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about the magic system is you have the hard system with sympathy that is more calculating and more just there's a system to it. It's kind of like a physics type of a thing, a science. And then you have the unexplainable magic that is much more, more like a dance and poetry and that kind of thing, where it's, you can't really just pin it down to one thing. And so it gives you a lot of room to speculate. And then it also gives you your analytical mind. You have a lot of room to analyze and study for sympathy. And then you get the more, philosophical discussions with the naming and that kind of stuff. Well, it's always cool when they do those kind of things.
Kvothe is such a great delivery system because how his mind is that he's like, if I can work at it, I can become a great sympathist, right? It's work, it's heart of stone, it's bearing down, it's the Elar. But then he needs the access or the ability, like his musicianship is a completely different animal, right?
Yeah.
He works at it, but he works at it without thinking about it, right? Like those chapters, that chapter or two after his family dies is so important to giving us a picture of how he's able to access things without considering it. How the psychology works is really quite fascinating, and we get very clear pictures of it with the doors, the mental doors and all that stuff. It's pretty great. I mean, Rothfuss gives us a lot of real tangible things. Well, maybe tangible is not the right word, but it feels tangible in even a psychological or like ethereal sense with those subjects.
He leaves so many things kind of open to interpretation that it just gives you a lot of room to where you can talk forever about the books, because there's no, there's a lot of different things. There's not necessarily a right answer, or at least it's not possible to pin it down to one thing versus another.
Mm-hmm.
There's many things that there could be multiple different answers. It just kind of depends on, he's left himself a lot of possibilities. He can go down different routes. Like people talk about, like, he boxed himself into a corner. No, he didn't. He left that shit wide open. Like, he's got some key things he's got to hit on, but as far as the story is concerned, he left the door wide open. There's so many different routes he can go.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see where that.
Yeah, I don't think that's what
would come from.
But like people are trying to figure out. Like, I think part of it is when Martin talked about doing the gap between book 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
When he had initially the gap for that, it was because he started writing that there was a 5-year gap in the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
There was going to be a 5 years in between book 3 and 4. And then as he was writing it, he was just like, it didn't work. And so then he had to go back and start over. And so he kind of like, put himself into a corner, and he was just trying to work his way out of that for the next 2 books. And so there's a lot of talk about, he's boxed himself into a corner. And I think, it just same thing gets applied to Rothfuss because he's taken a long time. But I don't think that's the case with him. I don't think it's a matter of that he's boxed himself into a corner where he can't write the ending, because I can think of endings.
Part of that a lot of times can happen even with like, any type of like word puzzle and different types of puzzles. If your own mind closes off the opportunity, so you think, wow, it's really boxed in. There's only so many things. Well, that's because you're trying to figure it out based off what
I wouldn't have came up with any of this shit. So
yeah. He's really boxed in. Yeah, he boxed himself in from page 1, really. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Before he even picked up a pen, he was totally boxed in.
Yeah, I think, I think the simplest explanation is the most likely is that he's trying to make it as good as he can make it, and doesn't feel that he's there yet. It's as simple as that. And eventually, the nonsense that, he's not working on it, it's never going to come out. It's like, no, come on, man. You're talking about like guys, their masterpiece, their master project. If they got to take their time to do it, it takes them 15, 20 years. I mean, it took them 15, 20 years before The Name of the Wind ever came out from the first time he started writing it. So sometimes that's the process, and you just got to deal.
Yeah, it's pretty funny to have all these absolute, like, you have your absolute feeling of what's
you're hanging
happening.
out, you're hanging out with Rothfuss, and you're hanging out side by side with him, and you see what he's doing in his day to day.
Yeah, and every time he goes out drinking, he lets slip, dude, I'm never writing this.
I'm not fucking doing it. I'm never gonna tell anybody.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's what, like, and all the stuff he did this year, he's just trying to like really sink it in even further. Just dig
Only
the
thing
knife
he
in.
did was he wrote that prologue, and that was it. He was like, "That's it, though. I'm not doing anything else. Never writing another thing for this story."
That's so ridiculous. Really just completely shit on your own legacy.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason. But let's see. So we got next week. He's gonna really piss off Vashet, and she's gonna snap on him and beat the shit out of him. And then we're gonna get his friendship, budding friendship with Pentha is gonna begin in the next one as well. But this is like kind of the turning point where he realizes, oh shit, I'm in a dangerous situation. And he knows it, but then he feels it. Like he gets to experience how dangerous this situation is, and he gets pissy too. Like where he's like, man, fuck these people. They're just gonna fucking treat me like shit all the time, talk down on me. They're gonna beat the shit out of me. Well, fuck them.
He really has
ready
waves
to go off.
He has waves here, man. Because we go back a few chapters, and he was at absolute panic mode, where he's just like, "What the fuck have I gotten myself into?" And then, all right, my only way out is work hard, focus, blah blah blah. And then he gets off on the fact that he's advancing. He's like, well, I'm making slow progress here, so great, But then he keeps getting chopped down. So that's one of the things that I like.
Same
about
thing
this
with like a load,
so
like where he's like, pushing a load and like, do it this way, teach me the way I want to be taught, and not respecting that there's a process. And he's doing it with Vashet too, except for he's treating it like he's at the school at this point. Like he realizes like, okay, I got to narrow it down. But then once he gets a little bit comfortable, starts to let go of how serious the danger is for his situation, and that they are judging him, and they're judging whether they're going to let him walk out of there in one piece or not. And so that is always the situation. They can have their fun, and they have sex together, they talk, they have fun, they joke around and shit, but when it comes down to it, she's still judging him and whether he's going to be able to walk out of there in one piece, and he doesn't respect that enough.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
But yeah, so we will jump into that next week. So peace out, folks.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and also one other thing, check out them polls on probably getting pretty deep into the tournament that we're running.
Yeah, where would we be
for the top fantasy duo to try to take over the world? By the time they hear this, it's probably going to be towards at least middle to end of it. But yeah, so check that out. All right, peace out.
Yep.